This is Meteo Mundo.
Friends, welcome on this Thursday evening. Rusty McCranie with you here. Meteo Mundo, we are live covering the landfall of Hurricane Helene. First of all, I hope all of you are doing very well. We're going to get into everything here. If you haven't been paying attention, Helene has unfortunately continued to get stronger, and this is a major hurricane of Category 4 strength. Landfall will be coming up here in the next few hours in the Big Bend area of Florida. So got you covered. We're going to talk about what's going to be happening across the areas impacted. We'll be keeping an eye out on a potential tornado threat for portions of Central Florida. We'll be looking at the wind and the storm surge threat as well. And again, it's not just the areas very close to the center of circulation. There are many areas with widespread impacts as Helene is a massive storm, not only in intensity, but in size as well. Appreciate all of my Meteo Mundo community coming in here and saying hi. Great to see you again. Hope you're doing well. For those of you who joined me on the Central Florida Weather Live channel earlier this afternoon, appreciate you guys coming back for our continuing coverage here of what's going on with Helene. Great to see you guys in the chat. Hope you guys are doing well. So, we have some new information to pass along here at the 8 o'clock hour. We got the new intermediate advisory in from the Hurricane Center. Again, if you're just tuning in, Helene is a major Category 4 hurricane. Winds are 130 miles an hour. Pressure is down to 942 millibars. And this storm is racing to the north-northeast at 23 miles an hour. This is the composite radar. Very clear to see the eye at this point in time. We did have, and I think it's still there, but there was a buoy here in the Gulf which did record some wind gusts of over 100 miles an hour. It just missed the strongest winds to the west, but you can see that eye continuing to spin. Those icons that you see are some inherent rotation within some of the storms. So again, part of this coverage will be to track the opportunity for some tornadoes through portions of this area as well. We've had several tornado warnings issued. At this point in time, we're doing pretty good. Now, it's 8 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Landfall is still expected in about the same area that when I was last on about this time last night. It slid slightly off towards the east, but there has been no big wobble in this track, right? And that was something I discussed yesterday. Really felt like the track overall was fairly locked in. It was just the intensity that was maybe a question mark because there was still, excuse me, some inner eyewall structure problems with the storm late last night and overnight. But once it got rid of what we call some concentric eyewall rings and consolidated down to a much more enclosed eye, that storm has just blown up. And again, hurricane reconnaissance aircraft continue to come in and out of the storm. And landfall more than likely now at 23 miles an hour. If we think landfall is going to be in Taylor County, which is where the Perry area is, and we draw it to the northern eye, it's 74 miles. So more than likely we're looking at landfall here in the next 3.5 hours or so. It could be very close to midnight. It really just depends on how far east the eye goes, because obviously the farther east that the eye goes, the land is a little bit closer to this area. The numbers that you see are wind gusts in miles an hour. We have had some exceptional wind gusts today, especially through the west coast of Florida. These are all live wind gusts for you here. And we've had some that have actually peaked over hurricane force winds. St. Petersburg had a wind gust of 76 miles an hour about an hour ago, but there's a lot of 50s and 60s. And again, this is coming with a tremendous storm surge up the west coast of Florida as well. If you see those pink polygons, those are tornado warnings. We've had a few tornado warnings. There was a storm, friends, a couple of hours ago that had a tornado warning on it. It was moving 75 miles an hour. The actual advisory from the National Weather Service office in Ruskin had a north movement at 75 miles an hour. Could you imagine something on the ground going 75 miles an hour? But the winds are going to be a big story. These squalls are going to get deeper into Central Florida. The winds are going to be more persistent. So we've got a wind threat through a lot of Florida with the squalls, with the heavier rain. Obviously, closer to the actual landfall, we're going to have a storm surge that could be unprecedented, a storm surge that unfortunately the Hurricane Center is talking about being unsurvivable. 15 to 20 foot storm surge. That hasn't changed since yesterday. Again, give me just 1 second here. Every so often this thing doesn't like to cooperate as far as the next graphic. That is the graphic that I wanted to show. 15 to 20 foot storm surge. Friends, this has not changed since yesterday. This graphic is still the same as what it was. A 15 to 20 foot storm surge in the Big Bend area, Appalachia Bay, down towards Cedar Key. Swanee River south of Chaskawiska, 10 to 15 feet. Still could see a 10 to 15 foot storm surge, Carabel to Apalachicola, but a slight shift east is trying to help out those areas. It's gotten worse for the east side of Appalachia Bay, the Nature Coast down to Cedar Key, and even on over towards places like Inglis, Crystal River, near Citrus County. It's worse because the eye will more than likely be closer with a slight east jog. Out west, a little bit better, simply because, again, if we stay on the western side of the storm, we are going to have the winds more out of the north, and it's going to be the weaker side, and the storm surge there, should not be as prevalent. Okay. I hit the wrong button. I wanted to make sure I wasn't stopped streaming. Apologize for that. This is why I really need to look. Okay, so that's the setup. How are you guys doing tonight, huh? What's going on with your world? Everything well? Let me get to the chat, check in with you guys, see what's going on here. No salmon shorts for today. I'm breaking the trend, man. We're going yellow. All right? Just because it's a hurricane, I don't have to be salmon. Mixing that up. Sharon, how you doing from Fort Walton Beach? Hope you're well. Fiona from Altamont Springs. Hey, Asher from Atlanta. We're going to talk also about what's going on, not just in Florida, but man, this storm is so widespread. They're talking about historic rainfall in portions of North Carolina. And you can already see the rain spreading in. And look at all of these gusty winds. By the way, real quick as well, I'm going to throw on all of these advisories. It'll take just a second to completely load up. But again, look at that 100 mile an hour wind there. So for our friends in Central Florida, you're going to see a lot of this. And let me just kind of get to the side here. And by the way, do you see this in the Orlando area? This is a non-thunderstorm wind of 58 miles an hour. These are the squalls moving in deep into tropical storm force territory. So all of this area in red are tropical storm warnings, which will last until tropical storm conditions are no longer expected, so the expiration time doesn't really matter. We had a new tornado watch just issued. The last one was going to expire at 8 o'clock. This next one goes all the way until 6 a.m. There will be the opportunity for storms to continue to rotate inland across the state with an inherent tornado threat through the overnight hours, and there's a flood watch as well. Now, the rain has not been very bad so far through most of Central Florida, but you get the idea. And then when I expand this out, and we did this in yesterday's live stream as well, just look at all of these areas that are going to be impacted with the heavy rain and the flood threat coming in with Helene. One area I'm going to be closely monitoring is the city of Tallahassee, right? And probably the easiest thing to do, let me get rid of the radar data here just real fast. Got a lot of information on here. Tallahassee, if it's lucky, will stay just to the west of landfall, okay? That might spare that larger city. But places like Perry and Cross City and Horseshoe Beach and Mayo, down towards Cedar Key, not the same. And again, we can query these watches and warnings. And just to give you guys an idea on this storm surge warning, you can read it with me here. Again, they're talking about the storm surge, life-threatening historic surge, 16 to 20 feet. 16 to 20 foot storm surge. It's unbelievable. You know, talking about areas that could be uninhabitable for a very long time. Interesting to note, by the way, Macon, Georgia is 190 miles inland, and they're under a hurricane warning. The fast forward speed of this major hurricane is going to lead to hurricane conditions deep inland, much deeper than what we would typically see, because there's not a lot of time for this storm to lose its strength. before it gets deep inland when it's moving at 23 miles an hour. You also notice that on my radar here, I've got all these little squirrely marks. If I pause this real quick, you see all these rotations? These are what we call mesovortices. These are inherent rotation embedded within the twist of Helene. These could all be potentially tornadic storms producing water spouts, and then as they move inland, producing tornadoes. That's why we have the inherent tornado risk as well. So just an update for that for you guys as well. How you guys doing today? Let's see. I don't think Cat 4, I don't think Florida that we've ever seen it. Yeah, we have. Ian was a Cat 5. Charlie, right? As well. Andrew, Hurricane Andrew. So several, to be quite honest. No pink pants. They're yellow. Sylvan from Trelawney, Jamaica. Appreciate my Caribbean friends tuning in. Same thing for Nicole as well. Thank you for joining us. Moral in the house. Thank you for your thoughts. Mildred in from Antigua. Again, appreciate all of my Caribbean followers coming along for the ride for tonight. Ernie is a member here at Meteo Mundo. Thank you, Ernie, from Riverview in the house. Again, I've got my dad's side of the family grew up in the Bradenton area, so I know Riverview well. Miranda in from Jamaica saying hello and good night. Patricia in Central Florida, lots of wind, power out, wants to ready, be safe, everyone. So that's the other situation too, guys, is that this wind is strong enough in a lot of areas where we're going to have power problems, man. It's going to be an issue, okay? No doubt about it. Looks like the Tampa radar isn't cooperating right now. Oh, there it is. Okay, good. So there's the live shot. We've been over at Central Florida Weather Live. We were watching this Tampa radar all afternoon long. And so this is a live shot. We're close enough to the radar sites. We'll be close enough soon or we'll switch over to the Tallahassee radar and we'll see what Tallahassee's got going on. Here's kind of a look at the Tallahassee radar right now. It'll take just a second to pop on all the data, but we've got plenty of radars here and I can show the composite views as well. Looks like it's definitely taking a second. There we go. So this will be the radar that we will use coming on shore. And you can just see, again, if you draw a straight line, I think it's the eastern side of Appalachia Bay. So no big deviation in the forecast as far as the track goes. Okay? I didn't retire the salmon, Chris. It just doesn't mean anything. Appreciate you guys. Let's see. Where did I lose my spot here? Barbara's in the house from Bradenton, Sarasota. How you doing there, Barbara? Still getting bands of high winds and rain. Hopefully it'll pass soon. Yeah, it's inland from Sarasota. There were a few tornado warnings, but they were inland from there as well. Thank you very much. Factory Polo, hey, great job. Appreciate you. Cool McCool watching from Puerto Rico. Appreciate you there. Hey, Barry, how you doing? Thank you for your prayers. Thanks, Todd. Trudy is in the house from Jamaica as well. Yes, Kenny, let's smash that like button. Again, I appreciate you guys coming in with me here and liking, and if you haven't subscribed, but I imagine that all the folks here who are joining me at the top of the hour, subscribers to Meteo Mundo, and again, I appreciate your support. Look at the wind field, guys. Look at Jacksonville, 56 mile an hour winds at this point in time. Now, I do have some live cameras to show you. Would you care to take a guess at what the inherent problem is right now? It's dark. So we'll sit and we'll look at some of these cameras together. We'll get some images out of them. It's just going to be the case where, you know, some of them we're just not going to be able to have daylight. We're going to try and hopefully also tap into maybe some of the I-10, which is the interstate that runs east to west in the panhandle of Florida, and see if we can't bring you some of those views as well, because obviously those will be street lit. But this is a dangerous situation. I want to be very clear about this. I mean, again, from the Tallahassee radar, it's very clear to see this monster hurricane moving in quite rapidly as well. I mean, potentially landfall could be a little bit earlier than I said, but it's coming fast. The storm surge is obviously coming along with it. If you've seen some of the video today, there was storm surge beginning to develop well ahead of the center of circulation and even behind it now. And by the way, what was that wind? Did we clip over 80 there? Let's see. I want to see. No, I guess it was over 70. But now Tampa Bay has a southwest wind, right? they're turning out of the south. And so now all of the water is going to really start piling up into the bays with the southwest wind. And then, of course, it's really bad for the Nature Coast and up towards the Big Bend. This is your 15 to 20 foot storm surge. Unprecedented in many, many ways as well. Absolutely love the gang. Thank you, Melita. I appreciate it. Asher, I would suspect this is the last Helene we have. That this storm name would be retired. Now, obviously, we don't know the full impacts of Helene as of yet, but what is more than likely going to happen, this will probably be retired because, first of all, this is going to be utter devastation and destruction for these areas of Florida. But it's not just those areas. Look, we're going to have hurricane conditions all the way up into about this spot. So into southwest and west central Georgia. These are areas that don't expect that, okay? Then the rainfall that comes along with it. I know we're looking at the radar out of Tallahassee, but if I drop that off for a second and bring back on the full radar image here, oops. If I bring back on the full radar, you can see all of the rain that's already moved into the Carolinas and Blue Ridge and Tennessee Valley and trying to get to the mid-Atlantic states. Some of these areas are talking about historic flooding as well. Western North Carolina would be one of the areas with such higher terrain with 9 to 15 inches of rain forecast that they're talking about. I was reading something earlier where they were going back in the record books more than 100 years to try and find an event that they could compare what they thought Helene would bring. So unfortunately for Western North Carolina and other areas, historic flooding could come along for the ride. We talked about it yesterday. Inland river flooding kills more people in landfalling hurricanes than any other threat. It's not the storm surge, it's not the winds, it's not the tornadoes, it's all of the rain it drops in inland areas. And you can see how vast of an area that is. Remember, this is not just an intense storm as far as its wind speeds, but its overall size as well. This could also be one of the largest. It already is one of the largest. It could be the largest major hurricane ever recorded in this part of the world. Okay, that's how widespread and extensive this storm is, especially on the northeast side. Again, it's still cut off west, but everyone north and east, including central Florida, will continue to be under the gun. And there are, again, tornado watches that are in effect for this area. Let's get back out to it. Jim in the Houston area, appreciate you, Jim. Appreciate my moderators jumping in and saying, hey. Good to see you again, Garrett. Hey, Rick, how are you, man? Appreciate that. Desmond from Jamaica. Yeah, I know, Fiona. It feels like we've been talking about a lot of nighttime landfalls lately, haven't we? Really does feel that way. So we've been getting updates from the Hurricane Center very often, okay? And if you guys see something, you let me know. I've got the newest information that I have up here as of well. But again, the opportunity could be where these hurricane reconnaissance aircraft are coming in and out of this storm all the time. And again, I hate how this color is, you can't even see it, but even though that's, okay, it's a 107 wind gust, right? So this poor little 3-meter buoy is trying to hold on for dear life and had 107 mile an hour wind gust. See if it peaked even higher than that, 103, and then back down to 87. Again, I maybe look to change the color palette. Obviously, we don't expect to have a lot of 107s, but there you go. So there was a buoy that was right on the western eye. And remember, that's the weaker side of the storm. It's still obviously the eye wall, but the more intense winds are going to be right here. And they're beginning to get into Cedar Key. Now, let's do this. That's the storm surge graphic. No, this thing is still. I'm going to go to the webcams, but I give you no guarantees as to what we're going to see. We'll take a second and look at a couple of them, but you know, we do have a good cycle of them, but unfortunately, I don't want to sit on black for a lot because some of them aren't backlit, right? This is not great viewing, but if I can get you a live view of something, I'll do that. I swear to God, these are cameras behind me and they're rotating, but I mean, you can almost kind of see now there's a little bit of black fuzz, but unfortunately, obviously, most of these cameras are just not pointed at light sources that are near the coastline, or they've lost power in general. Either the camera has lost power or we've lost the light sources around them. So this is unfortunately what I expected out of this, but I just thought I'd give it a shot, right? Can't blame me for doing that. I'll keep an eye on them. I do have an ability to look at them behind the scenes. And if I see a couple of them that get a little bit more interesting, I'll do that. But again, 15 to 20 foot storm surge there. But this main stream is about us talking together and taking a look at the current conditions here and now in what's happening with this storm. Again, this is such a historic storm as far as the actual widespread impacts too, man. I mean, you know, I live in Central Florida, dude, and the wind is just buffering against the house. It is rocking and rolling, and it's true across the East Coast of Florida as well. Jacksonville, which is way away from the center, you know, over 50-mile-an-hour winds. St. Augustine, nearly 50-mile-an-hour winds here. So can you imagine what's going to be happening here as this moves on? Again, there'll be some inherent rotation, so we got to watch out for the potential for some tornadic activity as well. So if I go back over to the Tallahassee radar and bring that back up, again, this is what's called the velocity product. And so we've had numerous tornado warnings already in this area. And so if we do have some landfalling tornadoes, I'll be able to track them from the Tallahassee radar, no problem. And we can do live storm tracking on that. And again, any of these little symbols that you see, it's my weather computer saying we got to watch out for these cells. And it will actually, if I just click on it, it'll actually show me the movement of the cells, where they're going. And then we can actually follow those cells in real time. Let me give you an example. This cell here, let me get off of that particular one, that's moved inland. All right, you see that? So I can actually zoom in and we can be like, okay, that storm is going to be here, and we can literally count down to the second from where we picked it up from, and it's going to give me the actual kind of overall impacts of that particular cell. So it's a great analysis tool when we're talking about in real time situation that's going on here, to keep an eye out for the rotation, for just stronger storms, anything like that. As you can see, well away from here, there's a tornado warning up in Brunswick, Georgia. So again, huge, huge storm in so many ways. Not a Cat 6. You guys are hilarious. Hi, Randy from Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome. Eric from New Providence. How you guys doing in the Bahamas tonight? I'll make sure to check you guys out a little bit as well for today. Herbert in the house from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Hope you guys are well. I know they had some more activity across the Lesser Antilles again for today. Appreciate you guys coming in. Factory Polo, Ponte Vedra Beach checking in. Very windy, but nice. Grilling steaks. I love it. John, I'm doing just fine. I appreciate it. John in St. Croix. Hope you're doing well there. Claudette watching from Jamaica. And again, I'm trying to follow this as best I can, but I appreciate it. Lenny watching from Titusville. Do you think there will be another system after Helene that will impact the coast? The Hurricane Center has highlighted a 20% chance in the Western Caribbean again, and we will get into that in tomorrow's video. It's nothing imminent, but is there an opportunity for more tropical activity in the Caribbean early next week? It's possible. So we can get into that one in tomorrow's video, but it's that time of the year. Again, we went under a historic kind of dry spell, but that is going away. We're getting more activity. Now look, last year was still much more active compared to what it is right now, relatively speaking, but it's picking up, and it's likely this time of the year, right? So if you didn't know, Isaac has already formed in the North Atlantic. It's doing nothing, going nowhere. So we have actually crossed off the 9th named storm of the Atlantic hurricane season as well. So we'll be on the J named storm for the next one. So conditions here up the Nature Coast are going downhill fast. Again, 53-mile-an-hour winds in Spring Hill, Homosassa, Floral City. And these Tampa winds are still something as well. I'm going to go back over the Tampa radar real quick, just because I want you guys to see these squalls that are coming in with this as well. 58 at the Orlando International Airport. These are nasty cells that are moving in, and they're much more persistent. For most of Florida, Central Florida and north, the worst weather is developing as we speak. It's been relatively windy, but not a lot of rain for today until now, and these cells are moving in. And the problem is they all have that potential tornadic signature with them, so we got to watch out. So when I bring on this product, these are your tornado watches. Your tornado watches go all the way up to Columbia, South Carolina, obviously on the east and the southeast side. And again, if we look at that, you'll just see that they just issued this, and it does go for a lot of the Florida counties, a lot of the Georgia counties, and other areas as well. And it's going to go all the way until 6 o'clock. So big time there. If we look at the latest, by the way, I haven't brought this up yet as well, the latest advisory on Helene itself. This was the 8 o'clock advisory. Again, catastrophic storm surge, life-threatening winds expected in Florida Big Bend area. They don't use that terminology lightly, guys. As of the 8 o'clock advisory, it was 115 south of Tallahassee, but Tallahassee is about 25 miles inland, or about 80 miles west-southwest of Cedar Key. Again, all the information is on the top of your screen. Winds 130, that's a category 4. Moving rapidly north-northeast at 23, that's 37 kilometers an hour. Pressure down to 942 millibars. As you would expect, we're locked in, so there's no changes to the watches and the warnings. There's no changes to the storm surge watches and warnings. All of that is still expected. Again, a 15 to 20 foot storm surge with around that area, a 10 to 15 foot storm surge. If we look at the discussion, which is just a little bit more technical, the bottom line is that they're talking about the hurricane reconnaissance aircraft have been going in and out of the storm a lot. They continue to provide the data that's necessary. They're getting the fixes and the movement and the pressure. And again, it's intensified by 30 knots since sunrise. It has reached that rapid intensification threshold that we talked about yesterday. Remember, when I joined you guys this time yesterday, it was what, 80, 85 miles an hour? It's now 130, so it's grown by 45, 50 mile an hour forward maximum winds in less than a 24-hour period. So rapid intensification has occurred for today as expected. Again, I thought that the biggest question mark would be the intensity. Really did expect this to be the landfall area just because of the inherent flow with the upper level low to the north and to the west and the ridge of high pressure to the east. There wasn't a lot in the way of more than likely going to get a big deviation in that track. It just looked like we were pretty locked in on the overall flow to bring this storm up towards the Big Bend area, right? And again, just be clear, well south of the center, we're still getting 50 and 60 mile an hour winds. Ernie, you can send videos to mymeteomundo@gmail.com. Thank you, Fiona, for putting that down there. I appreciate it. Gonna get back to the chat. Francisco, appreciate your prayers. Kimberly in Western Grand Bahama experiencing gusts up to 35. Here's our friends in Grand Bahama right now, and as she said, that's the case. West End has been reporting a 33 mile an hour wind gust, and it doesn't necessarily have to come with a lot of rain, right? The Orlando area, we're getting into some rain now, man, but that is a non-thunderstorm wind gust of 58 miles an hour, and then the Executive Airport in downtown Orlando with a 54 mile an hour wind gust, non-thunderstorm related. So big time winds. It's a calling card of how big Helene is, right? In size and in intensity, where, you know, we're 120 miles from the center and we're getting 60 mile an hour winds here. And they're pretty sustained as well. So again, rotation is going to be a problem, potential as far as that goes. Let's see if my computer has found the correct center of circulation. Yes, it has. Didn't want to do that. That's the wrong track. Okay. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of change here. I think we could see the east side of this here in Taylor County towards Perry, which again is a better scenario for Tallahassee. But this thing is hauling, man. It is moving fast. Merlin from Dominica, how you doing? I am iStar, how you doing? Pleasure. Hi, John. Worried about Tallahassee? I am too, but I will say this, the trend shifting east is a better scenario for Tallahassee. Doesn't mean they're not going to get thumped, but they may not have the Cat 3 or Cat 4 winds coming directly into Tallahassee. So a farther east track has been better for Tallahassee, no doubt about it. Historic storm surges on the way. Thank you, Bruce. I'll let the team know. Jamaica in the house. Appreciate the thumbs up and the likes, guys. Yes, thank you very much for that. Well, I mean, Ghost Rider, to answer your question, will Helene reach its full potential? I mean, I think it has. I mean, again, we just talked about it rapidly intensifying, gaining 45-mile-an-hour of maximum winds in a 24-hour period. So rapid intensification, I think it has absolutely reached what it could have been, and there's still a possibility it could go higher as well, right? This is the low threshold Cat 4. Let's be clear about that. 130 starts Cat 4, gets you to 156. I don't think that there's any way we get to a Cat 5, okay? We're running out of time, thankfully, for that to occur, right? We're within a couple of hours of landfall now. But Cat 4 strength, more than likely. Don't really expect there to be weakening. There was one update where they did drop the winds by 5 miles an hour earlier, and then they went right back up by 10. And that's simply because of the hurricane hunters coming in and out of this storm. Speaking of the hurricane hunters, you guys know, if you followed me here at Meteo Mundo for the other storms, we can take a look at the hurricane hunter reconnaissance aircraft that are flying into the storms. And here you go. So this is, as of about 15 minutes ago, they had a surface wind here of about 80 miles an hour. That is a derived surface wind. They had a flight level wind of 122. All right, so they are beginning to punch the northeast eyewall. So it's going to be very curious to see the winds that they get out of this. And of course, they're using drop zones, which means they're taking these basically tubes of weather data and they're literally dropping them out the bottom of the plane. And as they fall through the atmosphere and into the sea, they collect a ton of data that is used for all the modeling and all the forecasting, but a lot of the nowcasting now. I promise you the updates from the Hurricane Center as far as forward speed and intensity and pressure are all coming from the Hurricane Hunter reconnaissance craft, which are coming in and out of the storm all the time. Conform 941 now, okay. It wouldn't shock me. Again, dripping south, right? Not surprising. Trinidad is in the house. Barbados, Michael's in the house. How you guys doing? Kimberly says they're doing pretty good right now in the Bahamas. Marsha's from Jamaica. Hey, Roger from Guam. How you doing, man? Halfway across the world tuning in. Appreciate you. Yes, thanks for hitting the like button, guys. And I appreciate the support. Look, this is what I love about the Meteo Mundo weather community, right? We're tracking a storm coming into Florida. It's obviously very important here, but I got all my friends from the Lesser Antilles, from everywhere. I don't want to single out any location. Caribbean, Bahamas, across the world, you guys are showing up to support Meteo Mundo, and I really do appreciate it, right? Because when there's a storm going into your area, you know we've got you covered. So I appreciate you supporting those who are going to be directly impacted by this. And we do have a lot of United States followers here at Meteo Mundo as well. Some who live in the United States, some who have interest in the United States, but there are many who I've talked to who either live in Florida and are tuning into this, or who know people who live in Florida and are going to be directly impacted by it. So again, I appreciate that. We have the other Central Florida channel that I do, for live coverage, which we covered earlier today, but I wanted to flip over to the Meteo Mundo channel to make sure that we had kind of the most widespread coverage that we could. Again, 79, got the report of 841, so pressure down slightly. Take myself off camera just real quick. Oh, never mind. I don't have to do that. All right, so here we go. They are in the eye. Do you guys see how the surface winds have bottomed to nothing? So now they're in the eye. So let's track this So here you go, surface wind of 101, 114, 116, 116, 109, 105, 104, 90. So they didn't hit 130 at this slice, and they are now clearly in the eye. Do you also notice that there's some lightning here near the eye as well? That's not a great sign. We don't want this thing getting any stronger. Let's take a look at the satellite imagery. Look at this monster. Ugh. Look at this satellite presentation, guys. It's gross. I'm just taking off some of this other stuff so we can get an idea of really what this thing looks like. How about that? Remember what it used to look like? This is just 6 hours ago, but it definitely, once it consolidated that eye. And do you see how it's really coming around all four quadrants in a very large way? There's a lot of diffluence in the atmosphere in the northeast Gulf of Mexico thanks to that cutoff low. A lot of lift. It's a almost worst case scenario because also around the current loop here in the northeast Gulf, sea surface temperatures running around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 89, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So there you go. And now we're even getting lightning developing near that eye. Water vapor imagery, clear eye visible. Look at this monster. Wish I could show you the visible satellite imagery because that was cool earlier in the day. Especially right around sunset, we can see all the shadowing impacts. But again, here you go. Just loop that up for you guys to see. I'm gonna check in with the camera sources here. All right, we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully we can get a couple of them for you there. But just looking at the motion, again, it is slightly east of north, but I don't expect it. I mean, it's almost parallel to Cedar Key right now, okay? So I really do think this is Taylor County, Perry, right? East side of Appalachia Bay, something like that. It's not the most significantly populated areas. This is almost taking a Debbie track. It's just infinitely bigger than Debbie. And Debbie was a headache and a problem as well. But could you imagine 15 to 20 feet of water coming in with this? And again, you can see how massive it is in size. Absolutely incredible. This thing is just a monster. I'm going to bring back on our observations here. All the numbers that you see right now are wind gusts in miles an hour. All of these are actual buoys. I know some of them look like they're near shore, but they're just offshore, except for that one, which of course, and they hit a 107. Hey, Jason, I appreciate it. Virgin Islands in the house. Dominica in the house. Thank you very much. Alberta. Love it. Jeff from Keystone Heights. Got some family who live in Keystone Heights. Wink, wink. Winnipeg in the house. Thank you very much. Samara, how you doing? Hi, Shay, how are you? Shasta's viewing in from Canada. That's what I love about it as well. Got a lot of folks who don't live in any tropical areas, but they say, hey, you know what? This is kind of interesting stuff, and I happened to stumble upon your YouTube channel and, just curious about the coverage. Well, I appreciate that as well, man. And, if you're here, thank you for clicking that like button. If you'd like to join our community, click that subscribe button right now. Of course, that's always free here on YouTube. Going to get back over to the radars. I think it's time to start honing in on this, guys, a little bit. So let's go back over to the Tampa radar, and then I'm going to go back over the Tallahassee radar. Again, I have the ability to look at each individual radar by itself, or we can look at the composite radar, we can look at them in loops, we can look at them in real time, we can look at the winds, we can look at the reflectivity, we can look at the opportunity for hail being produced out of these storms. We can do all of that with my system. And again, we'll do it all in real time as well. Hopefully, we'll get the reflectivity to Tallahassee to pop back on here. It had been cooperating really well. We'll see. I'll give it one more second. I think it's trying to populate on right now. Listen, we do not need to lose the Tallahassee radar, like for anyone. All right, so there's the Tampa radar, still clear as bell. Let's try Tallahassee one more time here. All right, okay, so it's updating the newest scan. That's fine. Shouldn't take long. There we go. Okay, I was just impatient. So this will be the radar we'll be watching the storm coming on shore with. It's actually going to be very close to the center. We're going to have a great presentation. We got another radar out of Jacksonville that we can use as well. And again, I'm watching out for rotation. I'm watching out for the opportunity that we could have some tornadic activity out of this as well. Right now, near the center of Helene and for Central Florida, it's cooperating. You see that there's no pink areas. All of the tornado warnings are up here in Georgia, well away from the center. Sorry about that. Boy, the wind is howling outside right now, man. And I'm nowhere near the storm either. It just shows you what's going to be in store for, you know, portions of the Big Bend and Southwest Georgia. Again, Macon, Georgia is 190 miles in a direct line to the nearest point of the coast here of Florida, and it's under a tornado warning. That's how far inland it's under a hurricane warning. That's how far inland hurricane conditions are possible into the United States. That is in some ways unprecedented as well. You guys are looking good in Freeport, guys. Again, squally weather. You're still going to be on the southeast side here in Grand Bahama. Again, I don't have the radar up. I don't want to switch right now, but the winds are going to be fresh. You could still see some squalls coming in. We'll look at some of the model data coming up as well, but don't expect to be completely dry, although the squalls will be sporadic, but the wind gusts could be still fairly high from time to time. Not outrageous, probably 25 to 35 miles an hour with some higher gusts. Thank you, Ramon. Appreciate you. Tracy Ann, prayers for Atlanta. Eileen, Pinellas County here, lots of wind, squally. Boy, I bet you Pinellas County did, man. Pinellas County's on the coast here, right there on the west side of the bay. St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Pinellas Park, Largo, places like that included in Pinellas County. So appreciate you tuning in. Oh yeah, Chef Gregory, I did. The upper level divergence is out of control. Basically, there's just a lot of evacuation of air because of that cutoff low, and there's just a lot of feed up, and so there's inherent lift, and it's just helping this storm to get stronger and stronger. Let's go back over, as a matter of fact, to the Hurricane Reconnaissance aircraft, see what they're up to. So let's see, are they going this way or that way? This is 8:43, so they're probably going that way. Yeah, 8:35. So let's see here. 66. They're on the weaker side of the storm. 70, 72, 83. Let's see the back eye wall. 43, 44. So the back eye wall, that was 69, I think 89. 91, 91. So about the back eye wall with about 90 mile an hour winds. So still a good solid Cat 1 on the back end. And you guys know what happens, right? they're going to get hammered with the right front quadrant of the storm with those winds 130 and some higher gusts. It's going to be a quiet time for a few minutes because the storm's moving 23 miles an hour. The eye is not going to be in one area very long. And then they're going to get hit again with 90-mile-an-hour winds in the back end. So it's the 1-2 punch. Sylvia from Cat Island, checking in. Appreciate it. And again, thanks for stopping by, guys. While you're here, appreciate you liking, appreciate you subscribing, appreciate you find other ways to support the channel. We've had a lot of new members here lately. Appreciate that. Appreciate the super thanks, the super chat, the super stickers, and you can find other ways to support the channel in the description below as well. But I do appreciate all that support and you guys just tuning in for our live coverage here at Meteo Mundo of Hurricane Helene that will be making landfall late this evening here in the Big Bend area of Florida. Friends, this is a Category 4 hurricane. Winds are 130 miles an hour. The pressure has plummeted down to 942 millibars. This is a major hurricane. It's rapidly moving to the north-northeast at 23 miles an hour. So it has a fast forward speed. That's okay in the sense of what it's going to try and do as far as keep some of the most persistent heavier rain bands from sticking in one spot too long, but we talked about how widespread the impacts are. But then your hurricane impacts are going to now be felt much farther inland because of the fact that this storm is going to be moving so fast. And again, that's the live radar out of Tallahassee. It has a clear view. Does look like, I mean, you guys can watch it with me here, maybe just almost due north now, right? We'll just have to wait and see. Hurricanes don't go in straightforward fashions. Again, I showed you yesterday, you know, instead it goes like this, it goes stair step. It's stair steps. It's stair steps. And in a longer time, you get more of a straight line. But this thing is wobbling back and forth right now. But generally speaking, it's on that north-northeast heading. And again, these winds are really strong right now through Florida. Look at, this is Cape Canaveral, right, where we launch all the rockets. That's a 51-mile-an-hour wind gust, and they are hundreds of miles from the center of Helene. South, Sarasota still has a 62-mile-an-hour wind. Venice, 61. The Charlotte area there, Charlotte Harbor, Port Charlotte, 51. Cape Coral, 53. Pretty disgusting how widespread this wind is. You're going to get a lot of these green areas as well. These are flash flood warnings that are currently in effect for these areas. So we got to watch out for that. And again, storm surge. Let's just chat with this real quick because it's so important. This is really, really a huge story of this area. 15 to 20 foot storm surge, 10 to 15 on either side, right? You're going to have a lot of areas with more than 10 feet of storm surge. How about 8 to 12 down to Anclote River, 5 to 8 for Tampa Bay. That's a lot of water coming into a very populated area. Same thing for Charlotte Harbor at 3 to 5 feet. And again, a lot of these areas have not necessarily seen the highest storm surge as of yet. Tidal cycles will play a difference as well. We should cut off the storm surge relatively quickly as you go farther west into the Panhandle. Obviously, the reason why is because they will actually have north winds as the storm begins to move inland, right? Then you have the 1 to 3 up portions of the Georgia and South Carolina coastlines as well, all right? So this graphic hasn't changed since yesterday, but it's still worth noting how big of an impact the push of water is going to be with Helene. Again, I might have seen 15 to 20 one other time before, but it's very rare to get this kind of a storm surge, okay? It's very rare to get this kind of a storm surge. And the other thing about it too is that this is an area that hasn't seen that kind of a storm surge, obviously. Not a lot of folks have. So how this impacts this area, for how long areas are uninhabitable, exactly what destruction it's going to bring is yet to be seen. But I imagine that the pictures we're going to be getting out of this area tomorrow are not going to be pretty. And there's going to be a lot of water in a lot of places that have never had that kind of water before. 15 to 20 foot storm surge, if you just think about it, right? Let's check out a camera or two that is still into play here. Got a couple of cameras all over the place really for you here. This shot is out of Bainbridge, Georgia. So we do have some cameras out of Georgia tonight we'll be watching. Here's a shot out of Swainsboro, Georgia. Again, just a couple of areas that we can actually still see some of the locations for you here. And again, things are relatively quiet there. This is Gainesville, Georgia. It does look like these camera views are zoomed in pretty significantly here. I don't know if I can shrink that or not. Give me just 1 second here, guys. I'm going to try and take these camera views down just a bit for you here. Yeah, that's a little bit better, isn't it? There we go. So again, a couple cameras still up. Believe it or not, that is out of Atlanta. That's the Braves Stadium. They should have been playing the New York Mets tonight, but they're not. So again, some of the cameras out of Georgia still working. This is the Atlanta airport. And again, these areas are being directly impacted by Helene, that far inland as well. How about that? And then back over, this is Clearwater Beach, but we can't see it. So again, continue to keep an eye on some of those as well. But obviously, you know, one of the things here is that this is a very relatively unpopulated area compared to what some of the Florida coastline has. That's decent news. Still is not going to be fantastic for anywhere along here, but not far inland. You do start to get into some bigger cities, Perry, Madison, but especially Tallahassee, right? These are more highly populated areas along I-10. This is Highway 19, which basically follows the west coast of Florida down into Levy and Citrus and Pasco and Hernando counties, places like that. So again, live look here of Hurricane Helene out of the Tallahassee radar. Let's see how far away we are right now. Again, if we think landfall might be about there, it's about 46 miles from there to the outer northern eyewall. So at 23 miles an hour, we're about 2 hours. More than likely something like that. Could be a little bit deeper into the 11 o'clock hour. Just depends on exactly where it's headed. Get back over to the chat. You guys let me know what's going on with you guys on this Thursday. Bart wants to know, how hard is Jacksonville, Florida going to get hit? Well, you're going to get hit pretty good. You are going to avoid the worst of the storms, but for Jacksonville itself, again, Atlantic Beach, 63 mile an hour wind, 56. You guys are under tropical storm warning, a coastal flood warning, a tornado watch, and a flood watch. So those are the active impacts in Jacksonville right now. So you can see those particular ones. Just checking the flood watch for you, 2 to 4 inches of rain, locally up to 6. And then the coastal flood warning until 8 a.m. tomorrow. Total water levels 1 to 3 feet, isolated locations up to 4 feet. So good wind as well, right? 60 plus mile an hour winds, well away from the center of circulation. And again, so many advisories here. All right, so we're getting a meso-rotation there. There's some spin there. Let's go back over to this graphic. I think I'm gonna have to reset this just real quick. Michael says he keeps seeing 60-mile-an-hour winds in Live Oak. So the numbers that you see on the screen are gusts. They are not sustained, they are gusts. Okay? Again, not expecting hurricane force sustained winds until we get into the Big Bend area and closer to the Nature Coast. All right? So those are gusts, but listen, man, they are rocking and rolling gusts as well. And some of those will be approaching hurricane force, but just in gusts. Okay? Again, if you look at these concentric rings, these are your tropical storm force winds, and they are expected to encompass all of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and then into the Tennessee Valley. I want you to notice that they are still calling for this hurricane to be a Category 2 as it gets close to Atlanta. All right? I've never seen that before. I've never seen a storm be this strong, move this fast, and could potentially still be a hurricane near Atlanta. Certainly plausible. Macon will see hurricane conditions being on the east side of the storm, but that is amazing that they still have this as a 100-mile-an-hour storm here a little bit towards Macon. So incredible stuff there, guys. And again, it's all based on the fast forward speed. Of course, as soon as it moves inland, it's going to start to get knocked down, but it's going to take a while for that to happen, right? Just going to take a while for that to ultimately be ripped apart. And then you've got the inherent wind threat too. So let me bring back on those winds. Great question, by the way. They're up to 145. Are we at the 9 o'clock advisory? Yes, we are. I can lose track of time pretty easily here. Uh, 140 at least from the 9 o'clock. Now that can go up quickly. So yeah, we're up to 140 now, guys, at the 9 o'clock advisory. That's not good, because at 8 o'clock it was 130. So now we're deeper into Cat 4 strength. Wow. All right, so let's update that. Good night, buddy. I let my kids come say good night, but they're get your pajamas on. Oh, goodness. All right. All right. So, we still have Cat 4 Helene, but now winds are 140 miles an hour. Pressure is down to 41, as discussed, and it's now moving at 24 miles an hour. I mean, this thing is racing. It's probably the fastest forward speed I've seen for a storm this size. Typically, as they get larger, they slow down a touch. It's the babies that move fast, or the hybrid storms that move fast as they get ingested with a mid-latitude cyclone. All right, guys, 140 now. Man, oh man, oh man. You can clearly see the eye from the Tallahassee radar. All of these cells will be coming on and rotating. So again, you have to watch out for that. Go over here to the radar control. So basically, I can look at any of these cells that I need to. You know, for instance, this one, and it'll give me times of arrival, let me know if there's any rotation, let me know the forward speed, what's going on with it. So that will be important to utilize as this begins to move on shore, and we'll have to watch out for the rotation within this. Still obviously keeping a really close eye on central Florida as well on the back end of this storm. Again, no tornado warnings are currently in effect for these areas, but the winds, 56 in Orlando, still got a 66 in Tampa, right? Again, there is rain here. We're just looking at the Tallahassee radar, which is too far away. But just to note the winds that are still present along the west coast of Florida. Then you start to see these cells here that, again, have some kind of rotation to them. That one even says there might be a little bit of hail. A few lightning strikes near the center. All indicative of a very, very strong storm. Reconnaissance aircraft, they are in the southern part of the storm. Those are the purple dots that you see. They're plot points. Again, we can look at those live here. Obviously not nearly as strong in the backside, but they want to get a big slice of all four quadrants, so they have generally pre-planned paths that they take to make sure that they get all the data from the entire storm. But the focus is going to be on what's going on right here, no doubt about it. Here's a shot out of Hudson, Florida. Oh no, what did I do? Let me get myself off camera. This is Palmetto, and you can see this is a dock area here. I know it's a little bit hard to tell, but there's a dock. Lost that camera. Fair enough. Let's see if I can switch to another one here. All right, so let's go back to that dock camera real quick. And again, you can see that this is in the Tampa Bay area. You can just see the waves beginning to lash up. There's some smaller sailboats there. There's a couple of boats on lifts, but you can just see the water lashing up there. Then this is an area called the Meadows. And again, it's just wet. It's just squally there. The winds have been gusting. And you can just see that that camera is still shaking there in the Meadows, Florida. And then this is a really cool shot. This is the water coming over Bayshore Drive in Tampa. If you guys know the Tampa Bay area, Bayshore Drive is a very, very known area there. And you can see that the water's coming over it. This is Mexico Beach, but it's a little bit too dark to see that. So again, couple of the cameras we can still look at from time to time. I'll keep an eye on them for you, I promise. And if we can bring those up and look at them, we certainly will. And we'll do that. But obviously the water inundation, and you saw from the motion of the ocean coming in from the Gulf into the Tampa Bay area, that's a problem. If you looked at the street lights along Bayshore Drive, the water's come up over the seawall and is beginning to move inland a bit. And that had not happened before sunset. So again, the storm surge well south of where Helene is getting worse as we speak, especially with a southwest wind coming up. Again, I appreciate you guys keeping me up to date with some stuff. If you see something as far as from the Hurricane Center or from the reconnaissance aircraft, drop it in, let me know. Yep, appreciate the likes, guys. And again, thank you for tuning in as well. Thank you for supporting the channel. All of those good things. You're welcome, Dagwood. Hope you're doing well. Yep, the 140 is in. That was of the 9 o'clock update. And they will be doing updates basically as they feel like it they would. The Fujiwara effect will be in play with this system, and that upper level low, it is going to spin around it, and this storm will take over. But that's the reason why that you see that the actual track gets into Tennessee and Kentucky and stalls, because it's going to be spinning around and eventually just kind of blows its top. But the amount of water that it could put into portions of the southeast, again, could be unprecedented. As I mentioned, Western North Carolina is already talking about historic flooding that will likely occur from the rainfall that they're going to get out of Helene. Obviously, that's well inland, and they were trying to compare Helene to events that took place over 100 years ago. That's how historic it's going to be. So again, good rotation with the storms here. Here's a cell over the Mayo area right now. It's actually trying to drift south. There's a storm coming on shore. That one has no rotation as of yet as well. And again, some of the strongest winds inland are actually well away from the center. If you live in the Orlando area, the executive airport just reported a 62-mile-an-hour wind. There is hardly any rain in this area right now, okay? It's pretty unbelievable. Switch over to the base radar. You can see there's a few little spots of rain, but these are basically non-thunderstorm wind gusts. 56 at the airport, 45 in Sanford, 48 in Leesburg. A little bit of rain there, but nothing horrible. Not a lot of rain in Tampa left over right now. 65, 66 mile-an-hour winds. Helene is such a monster as far as the breadth of impacts, right? Absolutely crazy. Anthony, I'm expecting landfall within, what time is it? 9 o'clock. Probably, let's say as early as 11, maybe slightly later, closer to midnight. It just depends on exactly where it moves in. If it obviously jogs slightly east, the orientation of the shoreline is closer here. If it goes deeper into Appalachia Bay here, obviously the orientation of the shoreline is farther north, and landfall would be a little bit later on. It does look like it's kind of hugging the eastern side of this cone of uncertainty, but again, the uncertainty is basically gone. It looks like it's going to make landfall right in this area here within the next couple of hours. The forward speed at 24 miles an hour is a story, right? Because obviously this thing is hauling, and it's not going to take long to get to these areas. If we look at, again, the distance tool here from kind of mid-Taylor County, you're at 42 miles, so you're less than 2 hours there. So again, the opportunity that by 11 or slightly later if you go farther to the west. So the bottom line is sooner, farther east, a little bit later, farther west, should be before midnight. The 140 mile an hour winds are going to be located right in the northeast quadrant here, right here. That's the strongest, the right front quadrant of the storm. It doesn't have to be in a very large area, but if they're there, you know, that's where they base the maximum winds off of. And again, let's be clear, those are sustained winds, okay? Those are sustained winds. So again, the 8 o'clock advisory had 130, and it just got blown by the wayside, right? But the wind gusts are also very prominent as well. Take a look at, let's see here. Yeah, let's do it this way. By the way, that is the area in the Western Caribbean, and this is Isaac moving nowhere. It is forecast to become a hurricane, but we do have Isaac. So well away from anyone. Still have this one area, this invest. Not concerned about it though. Remember we talked about how the quick gain in latitude would have it stay well north and east of the Lesser Antilles and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And then we have this 20%er here again to monitor down the road. And we'll do that starting with tomorrow's video. But no grave concern right now at this point in time. I wanted to just show you guys real quick her model here. We don't need to go deep in time for sure. Just to kind of show you how one of the higher resolution models is playing this out. It's not a tropical model, okay? Doesn't do great with intensity a lot of times, but it's obviously, it updates every hour. So with a landfalling system, the track is pretty much spot on. So when we look at this here, it might be slightly slow, but not bad. And then as we get to 10:30, there's 11. So, you know, it does have landfall probably 11:30-ish, right there on the east side of Appalachia Bay. But again, for Tallahassee, better news. The center and all of the worst weather is east. Tallahassee would be shaved by some very high-end winds, but would avoid the worst of it. And it does look like that's going to play out. Still can't rule out a west jog to bring it back closer to Tallahassee, but more than likely Tallahassee is avoided the worst of it. Look at this rain, guys. Look at all that does. And again, still could be a hurricane up to about here. So that's 4 a.m. We could still have a hurricane. And then you see what it does deep into the United States. Again, inland river flooding kills more people than all the other hazards from hurricanes combined. There's going to be a lot of inland river flooding. There's going to be some problematic areas. There's going to be areas of high flooding and high water, and that could lead to some very serious situations in a lot of these spots. So certainly focused in on the landfall of the storm right now, but the impact's going to be felt in an extremely large area. And again, this is the HRRR model. If we look to Central Florida, my friends who live here, these squalls will continue to move in kind of east to west with the actual cells moving south to north, right on through the overnight hours. It should begin to dissipate a bit, but this is 6 o'clock and there's still some around. And again, the tornado watch, which means tornado conditions are possible, are still into play all the way until 6 o'clock. All right. So that's what the high-res rapid refresh model brings. Come back over here. There's your tornado watch. Let's take that off and then bring back on our winds and gusts, mind you, not sustained, but still quite high. Okay. So let me jump back in the chat. And again, appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate the support. Appreciate the super chat, super thanks. Those who have become members over the last couple of days and during this stream. And of course, other ways to support the channel in the description below as well. Hope you guys are doing well on this Thursday evening. Again, if I see any cameras here to bring back up, we will certainly do that. I mean, I can't say for sure about Helene being retired, but it would not surprise me. With as strong of a storm as it is, and then with the widespread impacts it's going to bring, I could see Helene being retired, yes. These things do not clean the air, but the crazy thing about it, and those of you who have been through tropical systems can attest to this, is that some of the nicest weather you get this time of the year is the day or two after a hurricane, because it sucks out all the moisture. You have nothing but blue sky. You have very low humidity for a September day, but more than likely you're miserable anyway because you're doing some cleanup or, you know, something's happened. But some of the nicest weather that you get are behind these storms over the next day or two. How far from Dothan? Absolutely. So Dothan here on the southeast corner of Alabama. Let me get back my spatial tool here. So again, Dothan is going to be okay overall because you guys are going to be on the western side, but we're looking at about 100 miles from where landfall is going to be. And again, because Dothan is on the the west side, and the track is here, really, most of Alabama should be just fine. You're going to get some wind, you know, 18 mile, 20 mile an hour wind. That's not a big deal. There'll be some rain, but I'm not concerned about the Dothan area for sure. Looks like the Tallahassee radar is going another live sweep here, but we'll stick with it. It'll come back in just a second. If not, we'll find another radar for a bit. No big deal. You're welcome. How you doing, Lucy? Good night. Ravi in the house. Avril from Dominica. Appreciate you joining in. Thank you so much. Yeah, Michael, so those are sustained winds at the surface. Yep. Sustained winds at the surface. That's what those are. And I made this point as well. 140, it doesn't matter. Again, if something is going to be destroyed in 140 mile an hour wind, it's going to be destroyed in 120 mile an hour wind. Appreciably, it doesn't make a difference to the amount of destruction and damage. It's all catastrophic at a certain point. It's just more about where in the record books that it goes. Okay, there's not a lot of structures that will be fine in 120 mile an hour wind that would then get leveled in a 140, right? Again, you get up to a certain point and most structures are going to be severely damaged, if not completely destroyed. And these are the kinds of winds that we expect out of this storm. Still got the last report at 140. If that changes, though, I'll keep an eye on it. This could probably still be just the 8 o'clock. My system doesn't pick up the specials as quickly as I would like it to. Notice that they're hoisting flash flood warnings up ahead of this as well, right? I mean, this wall of water is coming in. Might be able to get a shot out of Cedar Key, we'll see. You can see that these bands are back down south. These are the ones that overnight could rotate and produce an isolated tornado threat. Got to keep an eye out for those. See if we can get the radar here out of Tallahassee to come back. Hopefully it can. Yep, excellent. All right, again, so this is the live look out of Tallahassee, and we're going to get a real clear shot of Helene coming in, man. So flood warnings are going up for an inordinate amount of time, whatever, 6 hours plus, doesn't matter. It's just going to be as long as they need it to be. And if we look at those flash flood warnings, again, Dixie, Franklin, Gadsden, Jefferson, Lafayette, Leon, Madison, Taylor, Wakula, till 3:15, but really just whenever the flooding ends. See what numbers they're talking about here. Oh, I don't think they're mentioning a specific number. They're just like, guess what? It's going to rain a lot. And I mean a lot. I just want to make sure I had these warnings on. This is a extreme wind warning. Okay. You don't get a lot of those very often, but there you go. And we can look at that. Try and get it to where you guys can still see the storm, but it's interesting. We're moving onshore 39 miles southeast of Carabel. Extremely dangerous situation. Tornado watch in effect as well. Again, they're not talking about specific numbers, right? Just probably with what's going on here. Now, it does brush up against Tallahassee, this extreme wind warning, but as of note, it doesn't include it. And again, Tallahassee might just get spared. It's not going to be the case for Perry, for Mayo, for Cross City, for Horseshoe Beach. We're actually starting to see some of these squalls move in. All right. And so now my computer is picking up some of that heavy rain and squall weather trying to come on shore. So I'm just dump that, and the flash flood stuff could probably go away too. We know what's going to be happening. So this is quickly racing up, guys. We are getting closer and closer to landfall. Again, still going to be a little bit away, but sooner rather than later when we're talking about a forward speed of 24 miles an hour. See what this is going here. So they actually have this, as you would expect, rotating back around southwest. Forward speed of that storm is 45 miles an hour. So you got a little cell out here between Perry and St. Mark's going 40. Here's another one moving at 36 towards Monticello. It's going to bring back on live here. Let me get back over to the chat. Hi, Fiona. You know, if there's something that's almost given in a chat, I'll be sitting here looking at something, and then I come back over to the chat, and Fiona has picked up some more super stickers for us. Can we get the hearts out for Fiona, please? Thank you very much. I appreciate you. She's one of the moderators, one of the big supporters here at Meteo Mundo, and I do appreciate Fiona and others who have found ways to support the channel as well. So thank you, Fiona. Let's show her some love. She deserves it in all different ways for all the different kind things that she's done. So thank you very much. And you know, Fiona, I got you covered there in Altamont Springs. Thanks, guys. I'm glad they didn't add a category 6. We don't need a category 6, man. Yep, Cat 5 is 157. So let's see. I'm starting to lose my brain here. 111 to 130 is Cat 3. Yes. No. What am I doing? 111 to 129, right? 111 to 129 is Cat 3. 130 to 156 is Cat 4. Anything above 157 is Cat 5. Just had to think about it for a second. Yeah, 111, 129, Cat 3, 130 to 156. So we're like deep into Cat 4, but we would need to go another 15 plus to get into Cat 5. And no thanks. Here's a shot out of East Point for you guys. That's Port St. Joe, which is just to the west of where we're going to have landfall. But unfortunately, again, that one's dark. So again, if I see a camera or two to show you guys, I promise you I will. Let's get back in here. Again, I got a lot of data on this, but can you believe the tropical storm force winds in this area in blue? You know, oh, don't worry. It's going to make landfall near Tallahassee. But oh, by the way, Miami is still going to have some tropical storm force winds. Right? Whew, what a storm. So there's your eye. Now we're getting close to seeing some of the outer eye wall beginning to move on shore. Close. Again, at 24 miles an hour, it's not going to take that long. Things are going to progress quickly as we get into landfall. We're going to start to see the core of the storm come in really fast. Just doing a couple of housekeeping things behind the scenes. Again, let's get rid of that flash flood watch and the severe watches as well. I'm going to try and go a little bit lighter. Still want to have the winds on here. And again, if you're just tuning in, these are wind gusts. They're not sustained. Also notice that near the center, we're starting to pick up tornado vortex signatures, right? That's the inherent spin that comes along. So meso is just rotation, but when we really start to see a low-level signature, the radar starts to pick that up. And so that's the other problem, the landfalling tornadoes that come along with this. And so several of those are being reported right now offshore, but out of the Tallahassee radar. And then you just have a lot of rain coming in. Mary wants to know what speeds are going to be at I-10 in the West Jefferson County line. Okay. You know, sometimes I love this thing and it doesn't have a keyboard, and other times I don't. Yes, I would like you to move, please. I'm just trying to double check that I remember exactly which one is Jefferson County. Give me the name of the biggest city in Jefferson County. So, this thing is ridiculous tonight, by the way. I literally see all of them but Jefferson County. This is hilarious. Okay. Monticello, just east of Leon County. I got it. It's going to be very area dependent. Here's Jefferson County here, right? Just east of Leon County, which is Tallahassee. There might be a very big difference in Jefferson County between the west side of the county and the east side of the county, because it's all going to depend on where this eye goes. Would absolutely expect there to be higher end hurricane conditions in Jefferson County. But the western side might be slightly better off than especially the eastern side. But if you live in Jefferson County, again, winds are 140. The I-10 corridor here is about 25 miles from the coast. That's just 1 hour of forward speed, forward motion, forward movement. It's not going to help enough as far as to slow this storm down intensity-wise. More than likely, we're still going to have major hurricane wind gusts in Jefferson County. So are you there right now, by the way? Let me get back to that question. Gotcha, Mary. And thank you so much for becoming a member as well. So Mary did ask the question. So, Mary, my answer to you would be still major hurricane force winds. If you live, Mary, in this area, you need to be very, very aware of what's happening and what's coming in. This is not very far inland, and I need to stress that enough for these areas. There's not enough time and there's not enough, intensity loss for there to be much of a difference. I-10 from Appalachia Bay is like 28 miles. It's just not enough time. Again, hurricane warnings go all the way up to Macon. So we're going to have big time concerns inland as well. The storm surge is a big threat for the coast, the catastrophic, unsurvivable 15 to 20 foot storm surge. That's one aspect. However, the wind threat is going to be very significant throughout this entire corridor. And I'm talking about southwest Georgia as well, Thomasville, especially east Valdosta, then up towards Tifton. You guys know those areas. There's Perry, and again, all the way up to Macon. Warner Robins in the Macon area, and there's a tornado warning there. So it just shows you how widespread and impactful the storm is. And again, here, these are all the latest wind reports as well. It is quite incredible, Star J. This is one, man. Fiona heard a transformer blow. Oh boy, okay. Again, wind with power outages well away from the center. Big time impact too, big time threat. Hunter, the answer is none. There's no dry air. It's all very moisture laden. All very, very moisture laden air. All of that dry air went bye-bye a long time ago, which is one reason why it got so strong. Here's the water vapor imagery for you. It's its own thing. Obviously, the west side gets cut off, but it's drawing in drier air from that upper low. But look how rich the moisture is center and east. I mean, this blue represents a tremendous amount of moisture. And it is encompassing the inner portion of the storm. And again, you can clearly see the eye right here in the water vapor imagery. So now the eye is getting close to Horseshoe Beach. About 28 miles from there, but I mean, the outer eye wall is only about 10. Gene in Georgia, is it 150 now? Can't keep up with this darn thing. Where are you seeing 150? While I wholeheartedly believe you, I always just want to make sure we report only, and it really, we can just get rid of this track too. I mean, that's, the cone doesn't matter anymore either. Let's take this loop down to just the last hour, and we can take a look at that. Yeah, I think it's going to be on the east side. Into Taylor County, missing the heart of Appalachia Bay, but man, Horseshoe Beach, Cedar Key. Oh my goodness, guys. Horseshoe Beach and Cedar Key. Look at that. Gene, let me know exactly where that is in the state, and I'm happy to answer. While I know Georgia fairly well, I am unfamiliar exactly where Milledgeville is, but happy to help answer that question for you indeed. How's everyone doing tonight, by the way? Everyone feeling good? I'm doing okay. We went on Central Florida Live for like, what, 3.5 hours earlier today. So it hasn't been the longest day, but you couple it with yesterday and obviously not great sleep with everything else going on. But, you know, obviously important streams to cover for you guys as well. But I hope you're doing well tonight. Again, appreciate Fiona and Mary for supporting the channel. If you'd like to find other ways to support the channel, you can find that in the description below as well, via the PayPal, the Venmo, or the Super Thanks, or the Super Chat, or the memberships as well. About 20 miles northeast of Macon. So, Gene, technically, Macon is under a hurricane warning, okay? So, I would anticipate the opportunity. Hurricane winds are anything above 74 miles an hour sustained. That's what a hurricane warning is. That means that there is an opportunity in your area overnight for winds of more than 75 miles an hour. All right. So you need to prepare for those kinds of winds because the hurricane warning goes as far north as Macon. And really 20 miles difference doesn't mean much. So sustained winds that could be pushing 75 miles an hour. This again is an unprecedented storm in that regard. As quickly north it is moving and as strong as it is, that hurricane conditions could be felt overnight as far north as near the Macon area. So yes, you could get relatively significant impacts from this storm on this track. Fiona losing transformers left and right. And by the way, Fiona's already said where she lives, so I'm not giving anything away. Altamont Springs is here. Look, Orlando just had a 62 mile an hour wind gust. And there's not a lot of rain, guys. There's not a lot of rain. So power problems are going to be an issue. I'm going to jump back to the Tallahassee radar. See if we can bring back on the hurricane hunters. There they are. So they're on the southeast side. Here's Tampa again, just to show you guys that Bayshore Drive. You see how the water's coming up over? Just want to give you guys that look real quick. So it just shows you that in Tampa, way down here, the southwest winds are still causing havoc and still pulling water in. It's going to be a problem. And the winds are still 60 plus. Pretty incredible stuff. How about this northern eyewall? Look at that monster. Now, the other thing we can do with the radars is we can look at the velocity. And we're going to start to see some high winds coming in. It depends on which mode that they have the radar on to whether we can actually pick up the actual strength. But as Helene starts to move in, I can start looking at these winds. And again, these are inbound winds here. That could be well over 70 miles an hour so far. And this would also be what I'd be looking for the rotation, right? The spin. But just another aspect of what we can do with the radar is check out the actual wind forces coming in with this. So spin is one thing, but speed is going to be another. Looks like Gainesville's got a 40. Same thing for Keystone Heights. St. Augustine, 55. You guys notice how some of the biggest winds are still outside of where landfall is because we haven't gotten the core to come on just yet. But these winds are going to be really picking up. Tallahassee, obviously, 35 mile an hour wind right now. That's going to go. So we're just starting to see the far outer northern eyewall, which looks to be very wide, by the way, an indication of just how powerful the storm is. Let's take a look at that. That's massive, man. 30 miles, the eye is massive, everything about it is massive. The eye is about 30 miles wide, it's huge, unbelievable. You know, kind of 67 for where the inner core would be. Big, big storm, man. Again, intensity is one thing, but the actual sheer size of this. I hear you, Gene. I can understand why you would be as well. Neon in Orlando says it's very windy. Living in Central Florida as well, I agree with you. It is shuddering across the homes. Hopefully we don't lose power. Fingers crossed. Thank you very much, Brian. For LaGrange, Georgia, if you are west of the center of circulation, that is a better spot for you. All of the worst weather is along the center line axis and east, because on the right front quadrant, you have the winds coming in with the motion of the storm. On the left front quadrant, the winds are actually rotating in the opposite direction of the storm motion, so the winds aren't nearly as strong, relatively speaking, on the northwest side of this storm as it moves north. The rain shouldn't be as significant as well. Now, if you're close enough to the center, you're still going to get thumped pretty hard. But areas north and east are going to get thumped the hardest in the right front quadrant. So it's kind of right front, then it can be the left front or the right rear, and then the left rear or the bottom left quadrant is always the weakest with these storms as they move north in this fashion. So as long as LaGrange, where you live, stays west of the center, that is a better track for you. Steve, it's a great question. I appreciate that sentiment. Probably because, you know, we've only been around for a year. Also, you know, we started basically organically last year right at the end of hurricane season. So this is our first full hurricane season here at Meteo Mundo. We think we do a very good presentation. I promise you, this is still version 1.0. So you guys are kind of in on the beta phase. We're working really hard behind the scenes, myself and my team, to create a whole new look and a whole new interactive look that we want to bring to you guys next year. And obviously bringing about live cameras and storm chasers and things like that for these storms, especially the United States, will be a part of it. But obviously too, you know, we want to make sure we cover our friends in the Caribbean just as well. So there's a lot of new and exciting things, but in order to continue to do that, it does take growth, right? Just honestly, you know, the channel still doesn't really make any money, but we're still putting our time and our dedication into it because we believe in it. And we believe that the viewers will find us if we continue to do a quality product. And we've had good growth. We need a lot more to continue to sustain. But you guys tuning in helps support that, which is why, you know, we ask you for the very small things, liking the video, subscribing, sharing this with your family and friends. It really does help things out because as viewership grows, it's almost exponential, right? You know, it took, I believe we have somewhere around 40,000 subscribers now at the channel. It took a long time to get to 1,000. It felt like it took a long time to get to 10,000. And then when we hit hurricane season, you know, we really have seen our numbers come up. And hopefully that trend will continue. So I really do appreciate that sentiment, Steve. Thank you very much for that. And again, regardless of whether 5 people were watching or 5,000, we hope we give you guys the same presentation. But the more the merrier. I love the interaction. That's why I've wanted to do this. The ability to talk with you guys live. I did television weather for 25 years. And now I'm thrilled to do this because this brings in a whole different aspect. First of all, we could go on as long as we want, up to 12 hours. Those who know the barrel coverage know you can't live stream more than 12 hours. But again, we've got a lot of new things coming on behind the scenes as well. And I don't want to spill the beans too early because there's still a lot of work to be done. And you know, the guys behind the channel as well who support me are working their tails off to make that happen. So we think we're doing a great job, and I appreciate that, but we're really excited about what we can bring you guys in the future as well. And Jim, I appreciate that as well. Every little bit helps, my friend, so thank you very much. Thank you, Miranda. Appreciate you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, YouTube Streets. Claudette, that's a 20% chance of development. I didn't find the 150. If you can point me to where that was. Again, I'm on the Hurricane Reconnaissance website where they update. Now, they might have found 150 and the Hurricane Center may have not officially made it 150. I've still got 140. If someone else wants to jump in and say I'm wrong, let me know. Thank you, Swamp Hippie. Also love your name, by the way. But again, with these landfalling hurricanes, if you guys, we're going to be collaborating with some storm chasers as well to bring you guys kind of a 1-2 punch coverage. So that's in the works as well. But you know, the biggest thing is that we're just on here covering areas. Now, look, there's a fair amount of coverage for some of the landfalling U.S. storms, but for my friends in the Caribbean and the Bahamas, it's not the case. And so we know we provide an important service for those folks as well. So now the hurricane hunters are getting back into the northern eyewall. So they're back up to 104 here about 10 minutes ago. Again, some good rotation. I'll be curious to see whether they want to punch this core or not. We'll see if maybe they did. So sometimes I get this data in clumps. So this is curious. This is going to be awesome. We're going to do this together. You ready? 92, 71. So they're getting out of the core winds. 77, 68, 86. I got to say, I'm a little disappointed. I thought we'd see some stronger winds here. 77, 71. What was that? 115. That's probably flight level, not surface based. All right. So again, and this is some of the data. The drop zones are a whole different thing as well. But they're a little bit farther. That wind is a little bit less than what I would have expected there. Again, thank you, Jim. Appreciate you. Thank you, Fiona. And again, thank you, Mary, for becoming a member as well. Memberships, by the way, are just 99 cents a month. That's the join button that you see. You get access to custom badges. So if you look at Mary, you see that her name is green and she has what's like a new badge there. She's a 1-month member. It's just a very small way to support the channel. If you'd like to, if you're interested in that, custom emojis as well, just to play around within these chats. But the biggest thing is I just love to talk to you guys while we're looking at these storms together. And obviously there are times of importance where, you know, we focus in on and we really look at some really important things. There are other times we can chat a little bit more as well. Again, at this point in time, we're kind of waiting for the brunt of Helene to get in here. I'm still keeping an eye on some of the cameras. This is actually a shot out of Tallahassee, but again, you guys just can't see much here in some of these shots. So again, there's Tallahassee, there's East Point again. Hey, Tim, that's great to hear, man. I appreciate that, Timothy. Thank you. And then again, there's Port St. Joe. Thank you, Kimberly. Appreciate you guys liking and subscribing. We can jump up quick with that, I can promise you. All right, unfortunately again, we have access to certain things. Again, I'll keep an eye on some of these cameras, guys. If I see something that comes up that you guys should see, I'll point it to you. But what the problem is, too, is that they're in a rotation. And unless we pull one out by itself, which is hard to do, we're not going to be able to stay on one camera. But it is what it is. Again, your wind gusts in miles an hour. Still, as of note, although the winds are freshening up here in the Panhandle in the northern part of the state, I take you to Central Florida that has the strongest winds. Kissimmee, 60-mile-an-hour wind. That's the airport. That's MCO, Orlando, right there on the southeast side. Hi, Yvette. Thank you very much. I appreciate your support as well. And I love the first super on our live stream that you chose us. So thank you very much for that, Yvette. If you guys want to get the thumbs up and the hearts out for Yvette as well, really appreciate the support here at Meteo Mundo. Thank you very much. 145 incoming? Probably. We should get a 10 o'clock update. There should be a position track update at 10, for sure. And again, hurricane hunters jumping through. We'll see if they spin back around, but they're getting their last gasp and probably their last full flight before landfall here. And again, back on satellite imagery. There you go. What a monster. And it is going to be slightly east. Okay. This is Taylor County right here. Cross City, Highway 19. You know, the problem is, guys, and you know, is that let's see. So this is the derived winds, and this is the problem, man. Let's take the grid spacing down a little bit here. All of these winds into the Nature Coast, Pasco, Hernando, Citrus counties, up to Levy County, so Homosassa Springs, Inglis, Cedar Key. Cedar Key, man. You want to talk about an area that I'm not sure I want to see what has happened. Again, this is a peninsula that is basically surrounded by water. I've been there before just to visit, but I've done hurricane coverage out of Cedar Key as well. They're going to be covered up on all sides. Basically, everything floods except for the second-story buildings. And you're like 10 to 15 feet, man. And it's all onshore. And this is the problem I was talking about. All of these areas east of the eye has an onshore wind. And it's so dependent. Now you look west of the eye, and it's a north wind. Look, it doesn't mean that Carabel and Apalachicola itself, which has a 60-mile-an-hour wind, will not get a storm surge. They will. But the motion of the storm and the wall of water are going in the same direction near the center and east, whereas the winds, which are trying to wrap back around the southwest side of the storm out west, are fighting that storm surge, so it's of a lesser impact. Still significant, but the highest is going to be here, okay? And that's the big problem. And then down the coast, I mentioned it in yesterday's video, behind the storm, slightly westerly touch to them. They're kind of south-southwest. But for an area like Tampa Bay, where the bay opens up southwest, look what these winds do, guys. They push that water all the way into the upper bay. And Bayshore Drive in South Tampa, if you know that area, floods like anything. This is where that camera is from. I mean, Bayshore Drive down here, just, it's bad news. The wind direction couldn't be worse for the west coast of Florida, anywhere along the center and off. And then you get this overwash effect on the east side. Beach erosion, sand dune problems, 50, 60 mile an hour winds, storm surge of 1 to 3 feet, even over here. So the impacts are crazy, crazy wide and significant. But man, oh man, oh man. These onshore winds in Horseshoe Beach and Cedar Key, it's not going to be pretty to see that. We do have the 10 o'clock update, and it's still 140. Just passing it along. The National Ocean Service tide gauge at Cedar Key is reporting a water level 6 feet above mean higher high water, probably high tide water. So already a 6-foot surge at least in Cedar Key. And we're getting closer to landfall here, guys. We're getting closer. But I just wanted to show you that wind because I think this is a good depiction of how big of a difference it makes where the eye moves on shore as to who gets the worst of it. And now it's basically set in stone. It's East Taylor County South. Apalachicola Bay will be spared the worst. Tallahassee looks like it's going to be spared the worst. Still significant, but not the worst case scenario here. Is it Detta Life Betta? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I appreciate you. And my pleasure to cover Hurricane Beryl. Obviously a significant storm, and I appreciate the support that you guys had for us here at Meteo Mundo for that. That was an intense storm, no doubt about it. And glad we were able to provide that coverage. So thank you very much. Let's get the hearts, let's get the thumbs out for Detta Life Betta and the support of the channel as well. So again, Fiona, Mary, Jim, Yvette, Detta Life Betta, thank you very much. All of those as well who find the ways and the links in the description, I send personal thank yous to as well. So for those who have done it that way as well, know that you have my gratitude as well. Let's go back over to the Tallahassee radar. And again, monster storm. All right, so now they're punching through the western eyewall. Winds of 105, 102, 93, 74. Now they're in the eye. Let's see if it was a little bit stronger here. 92, 101. Okay. So again, I can change this to as of, and I do need to update that. And I'm curious myself actually here. Oh, do we get, no, it's just the full advisories. I don't get these updates. You know, I can pull in the advisory when we look at it together. I only get the intermediates and the fulls. So here we go. 140, 939 in northeast at 24. So a little bit of a change. You know, it's only dropped another 2 millibars, that's all. This is, we need to get this thing on shore, man. I mean, it's coming. We can't spare anyone, but let's not get this thing any stronger, man. All right, so as of 10 p.m. EDT. So always try and put the newest information from the Hurricane Center right there. Again, this is Cat 4 Helene. A very solid Cat 4, but will not become a Cat 5. Thankfully, if it pulls that off, might have to just call it a day. 939 pressure. It's a deep storm, extremely strong, and moving rapidly. To the northeast at 24 miles an hour. This might be the fastest moving Cat 4 at landfall I've seen. I'll have to go back and take a look at a couple of things, but I can't remember one in the short term that has done that. Again, we're still behaving with the tornado warnings here. I like to see that. The active tornado warnings are actually in Georgia and South Carolina. So those folks are going, wait a minute, that storm's 500 miles away. Maybe 300 miles away, but you know, why am I getting that? And again, with my weather computer, I can just keep a close eye on any of these rotating cells. So if there's anything squirrely that pops up, we can take a look at it. If we go back over to the velocity, again, there's going to be a lot of spin. If I put this into motion, there's your spin. And all of this is rotating. So coming on shore, your land, water, friction difference also produces inherent rotation. And so that spin could be prominent in some areas. So you always have to watch out for landfalling storms producing that. No, volcanoes cannot affect hurricanes. Thank you, Michael. Isaac, we already have Isaac. Isaac formed late last night or this morning, way out there in the North Atlantic. Joyce sounds right. Quite honestly, I'd have to go look at the list. But I believe so. But yeah, Isaac's out there right now. So we do have the 9th named storm. But again, it's a North Atlantic cold water fish storm. Not expected to impact any land. Those are the kind we like to see. I would have to look at the list, to be quite honest. That's one of those things. Some people like, I mean, I've got the list in my graphics system. Some people just like inherently remember things like that in the list. I just don't. I go one by one. So it's Isaac, which we have now, Joyce, then Kirk, then Leslie. Let's hope we don't get past that, but Isaac is gone. So Joyce, Kirk, Leslie, Milton, Nadine, Oscar, Patty. Raphael, Sarah, Tona, Valerie, William. We're not going to get there, right? So the hurricane is located right here. We're probably about an hour away from landfall, which is going to be in the eastern side of Appalachia Bay or the Taylor County line, okay? This is a storm that is a Category 4 hurricane. It's an extremely serious situation. This is catastrophic, life-threatening, unsurvivable storm surge of 15 to 20 feet. It doesn't come in like that, a wall of water. It builds and it builds and it builds. When I grew up in Crystal River, we had a storm that flooded our house and it came in like it was a tide, except this is mega tide. This is Sharknado tide coming in with 15 to 20 feet of water. It's going to inundate areas along the coast and even well inland, and that water is not going to recede for quite some time in some areas. It's an extremely dangerous situation, and there have been mandatory evacuations up for a very long time in this area. It's not the most populated portion of the Florida coastline, thankfully, but there are homes and structures and people who will be, unfortunately, severely impacted by this, but I hope they're not there. Again, you can replace homes, you can replace property. We can't replace people. We say that all the time. It's cliche, but darn it if it's not true, you know? And again, we're picking up all these spins as well. So the eyewall itself is starting to get real close. Again, we have to have the full eye come through, but now, you know, we're only about 7 miles on this northeast side, guys. So it is moving in pretty quick. It's 10 o'clock. I mean, it could still fully be 11 before we get landfall. There's no doubt about that. But you can see that. And again, let's give props to the models, to the guidance, that this track that was brought up in the Western Caribbean was pretty much spot on, right? So the forward speed can aid in the winds in the northeast quadrant because the maximum winds are what they are, but when you add on the forward speed, that is going to be an addition. So not for the entire storm, but where the storm motion and the wind direction are going in the same direction, that is a net positive. It's the exact opposite on the western side of the storm, where the storm motion is north, but the winds are out of the storm motion is south to north, but the winds on the western side are north to south. It's a net negative there, okay? So again, forward speed can impact the winds, but only in the certain quadrants where the storm motion and the winds are already going in the same direction. But great question. Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate you as well. Let's get the thumbs up, the hearts out for Taylor. Thank you for the $1.99 super stickers. Again, it warms my heart when I see that this is their first super on a live stream, that you guys have chosen Meteo Mundo to make that first leap, if you will, into helping creators like myself and the team behind Meteo Mundo. So thank you very much for that. And I hope, again, you're getting something out of it. You know, this is why we're doing what we do. So appreciate you, Taylor. Thank you much. Yeah, absolutely. Well deserved. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all supporting those who are supporting the channel as well. Yeah, so Henry, we talked about that the Northwest Caribbean has a 20% chance, and I'll cover that in tomorrow's video. It's out there in time right now. Nothing I'm very concerned about at this point in time. Again, if you live in the Orlando metro area, and Fiona was talking about losing some transformers, it's a 63-mile-an-hour wind gust in Orlando. And I'm only mentioning this because, again, you know, also do the Central Florida channel, and some of the folks who typically watch Central Florida rather than Meteo Mundo are joining us. And I promised them in the stream this afternoon that I would continue to monitor Central Florida because there is an inherent tornado risk. We haven't had that, but darn it if these winds aren't crazy high. 51 in Titusville, 51 in Leesburg. Unfortunately, right at landfall, we don't have a sensor in Perry. We do in Tallahassee. So hopefully here, you know, we'll start to pick up those winds, but we're starting to see the northern eyewall move on right now. Oh, yeah, Perry's going to get it, man. Now, they may not get the storm surge, right? Because obviously the terrain does, but you want to talk about an area that's going to get the brunt of the wind. Perry is going to get the brunt of the wind. So I would expect major hurricane winds coming into Perry. It's nearly ground zero. It's not the coast, but that, if I had to choose a city that has a population that's going to get thumped the hardest, it's Perry. Northeast side of the eye. Yeah. And I've driven through Perry several times as well. It's been a while, I'll say that, but smaller area, but still some population there. And I'm sure since the last time I've been through it, it's gotten bigger as everything else has too. But yeah, Perry. And look, man, even the I-10 corridor, guys, like let's not play around. Like Live Oak and Madison and Mayo and Brantford. These aren't large cities, but they're big enough. Cross City as well. And we've already talked about the winds in the direction here in Cedar Key. Again, here's the Homosassa winds, you know, still out of the south, all of this water piling up. The storm surge is just so significant. Then we have these tornado vortex signatures because of the rotation as well. So it's not out of the question that the Weather Service office in Tallahassee just starts firing off some tornado warnings. That could be a possibility too. But again, very visible, the eye. Massive eye, nearly 30 miles wide. Ooh, that's crazy. It's not right, but it was crazy. Okay. I can look at a lot of different things here. I know you're like, Rusty, what are you looking at here? You know, storm relative velocity, gate to gate share. I really just want reflectivity, but it's not cooperating. So let me turn that off real quick. We can look at the hurricane hunters while we're doing that. You know, this would be a fun game if it wasn't so important to get the information out. Find the center of circulation from the hurricane center. The reconnaissance aircraft. All right, let's see if this radar is cooperating now. Okay, good. It was just giving me a wrong color palette there. But, so the hurricane hunters are, it almost looks like they're just in the eye. Well, Peggy, I appreciate you saying that. And because that is your thing, there will probably be even more content that you will be interested in down the road. Wink, wink. So stick around for that. Again, if we're going to keep doing this, we got to keep growing. And so we've got a lot of different ideas, and you guys supporting us from the beginning, it's going to help us achieve that. So looking forward to doing some of the newer things coming up as well. Now we're up to a even stronger tornado vortex signature. But just to round out my thought of this storm, you know, that eye is pushing 30 miles wide. It was at 30 not that long ago. It's such a massive eye. Thank you, Aunt Jemima. Well, we're not at 500 likes yet? How dare us? How dare you? Everyone should be ashamed. Hey, Donald, how you doing, man? Stumbled across your channel and the fact that you cover the Caribbean. I have gone through several hurricanes as a police officer in Galveston. Think you do a great job. We'll appreciate you protecting our friends in Galveston. And thank you for saying that. That's exactly what we do here at Meteo Mundo. We cover the Caribbean and the Bahamas and, you know, all of the islands on a daily basis. One of the other tenets that we have is that we cover any tropical system in the Gulf, the Atlantic, or the Caribbean as well, whether that's landfalling in Mexico or in Jamaica or in Florida or wherever it's going to be. We know that these are important things to cover here, so we're going to do that. And again, we're looking forward to provide you guys even more widespread coverage of some things as well. But thanks for tuning in on this. Obviously, we're getting into crunch time here too with this hurricane about ready to make landfall. And it's going to be Taylor County, which is where Perry is. Hey, we did it. All right. Sustained winds of 101. Nope. Sustained winds are 140, man. This is a Category 4 hurricane. They might be at a location where they're getting sustained winds of 101 on shore, but the actual strength of Helene coming in with this eyewall is going to be 140 mile an hour winds. And again, we've already mentioned it, and it stinks to say, but that being said, anything that's going to be toppled over in 120 mile an hour wind is going to be toppled over. Anything that's going to be toppled over 140 mile wind is going to be toppled over 120 mile an hour wind. It doesn't really make that much of a difference when you get to a certain point, right? Unfortunately. The damage is going to be the damage, whether it's 120 or 140. It's just more than anything what this is going to go in the record books as. And it looks like it's going to be a Cat 4. There's not a lot of structures here, what I'm saying, that will be able to withstand 120, but then get crushed in 140 mile an hour winds. You know, you get to a certain point and it all kind of ends up being the same. Same situation when I worked in Oklahoma City. I'm from Florida, but I worked in Oklahoma City for 7 years. Saw all different kinds of tornadoes and all different destructive tornadoes. And it got to a certain point where it didn't matter what the wind speeds were beyond it because it was just going to level whatever it went through. And when we're talking about hurricane, you can get to that point as well when you're talking about these higher end Cat 4 and 5s. Now, the difference with them sometimes isn't the destruction caused by the winds, but the storm surge. Because these stronger, deeper storms will bring more water with them. So I don't want to gloss over the fact that there isn't differences between a 120 and a 140 or a 140 and a 160. But typically speaking, damage to property is about the same in that spread. But the wall of water that it can bring can be vastly different with different size storms and different intensity of storms. One thing that we're not going to have inherent along the coast generally with a 24-mile-an-hour forward speed storm is a lot of flooding in one spot. That will be different the farther north that you go because they're already seeing rain and then Helene slows up. But for coastal Florida in the Big Bend, probably not going to see a ton in the way of a lot of flooding from the rain. The inundation of the water is a whole different story. We're going to get lucky in Carabel, Port St. Joe. Again, western side of the storm, north wind, significant north wind, but counterproductive to the storm surge and the forward motion of the storm. So Carabel, Sop Choppy, again, doesn't mean that there won't be flooding and damage and there won't be inundation of water, but it's going to be so much worse east. Cedar Key, Horseshoe Beach, there's other fish camps here. This is the Steinhatchee Wildlife Preserve. It is a very rugged rural area of Florida, kind of, when you go down here to where I grew up in Citrus County, it's called the Nature Coast for a reason. Still a lot of untapped land and resources and, just beautiful areas that aren't built up. And what that means is at least you don't have the population centers if this were to hit Miami or Tampa or even Pensacola or Jacksonville, some of the bigger major cities along the coastlines of Florida. That's not the case in this part of the state. But again, there are still structures, folks' livelihoods are still impacted by this. And it's not just here, again, deep into the area. Just very quickly, just to bring this on. Again, this is a hurricane warning that has now been extended north of Macon. Who was my friend who was north of Macon in the chat? You're probably under a hurricane warning. He mentioned, I think he was 20 miles north of Macon. Well, they've extended this 2 more counties up. I've never seen a hurricane warning north of Macon. That's more than 200 miles from the coast, guys. That just shows you what this is going to bring. So if I go from here and I draw a line to the coast, I don't know if I can show that. It's 233 miles. There's a hurricane warning in effect, 233 miles an hour. That's basically southeast Atlanta. And then you look at everything Atlanta is under right now. All kinds of flood warnings, the tropical storm warning, the flash flood warning. Oh, man. For extremely valid reasons, we are talking about landfall in the coast, but the appreciable significance that this entire system is going to bring. I mean, it's hard for me even to scroll over those areas. There's so many different kinds of advisories, right? But just take a look at all of the heavy rain that spread in, and then it slows up and that rain sits over, and now you get the 9 to 15 to 18 inches of rain in some spots. But the wind threat to bring sustained hurricane conditions to north of Macon, Georgia, could be unprecedented. I certainly have never seen it personally myself. If Gene is still in the chat, Gene, get prepared for hurricane conditions overnight, buddy. Especially with them adding a couple more counties north. Hi, Desmond from Jamaica. How you doing? Again, appreciate all the support. Thank you guys for tuning in. That is actually my hometown. Just went by. You can see a little bit of flooding going on here. This is Hudson. This is just north of the Tampa Bay area, right on the coast. Looks like we've got some water coming into that area as we speak. This is that shot again of the dock area here in the Tampa Bay area. And look at just how much wave action there is right at the coastline. Okay? Right at the coast. And again, this storm surge graphic tells that story. All the way down to Tampa Bay, a 5 to 8 foot storm surge. That's bad enough. That's a huge problem. But now you have 15 to 20. You've got 15 to 20 foot storm surge. So again, back over to this camera and just look at that wave action moving up Tampa Bay. And I know we can't see a lot, but you can just see how that water is moving. And then you've got this meadow shot here, and you can just see that camera still bouncing around. And this is some areas where we do have winds that are still over 60 miles an hour in gusts, not sustained, but gusts. And then there's that Bayshore Drive shot. If you look at the street lights, you see how the water is over Bayshore Drive. It's an extremely popular area of Tampa, right on the bay. And that water is over all the seawalls there in Tampa. And again, I know we're losing some of our cameras here and there. It happens. Some of it's dark. Some of it we've lost the internet connection, but there you go. So a couple of shots there to just show you what's going on. So we're getting real close to seeing the eye punch into Taylor County. Francisco says, deploying to the Big Bend sometime this weekend. Tomorrow I'll be spent packing my gear, celebrating my October birthday dinner with my family tomorrow night. Spend about a month or two there in the area. Francisco, are you part of an electric crew coming down to help support? I would imagine you might be, or some kind of first responder at some point. But if you are, and regardless of exactly what you do, thank you for coming down and helping out those in need. So appreciate you there. Not a Category 5. Nope, it's a Cat 4. Winds are 140. Should not become a Category 5. It would have to jump all the way up to 157 before landfall, and landfall is coming very shortly. And get back over to the live radar out of Tallahassee, as a matter of fact. So, right in Cat 4 strength, starts at 130, goes to 156, we're at 140. So very solid Category 4. And again, you know, we talk about this a lot, but I do want to reiterate the fact real quickly that, you know, when we start doing these videos about these storms 5-6 days out, obviously I appreciate everyone's opinion, right? Whether you think what I'm saying is garbage, or whether you completely agree with it, or whether you have your own opinions about where the storm might go and what it might do. I mean, when it was in the Western Caribbean and it was just an area of rain, you know, you hear people say, what are you talking about? It's just a few showers. You can't just look at today. You've got to look at plausibly what could be happening with this storm. And there were signs 5-6 days ago that this could become this kind of storm. But the bigger thing is that you got to give it up to the models and the track. I mean, they were basically spot on. Didn't waver, had it in this area as landfall the entire time. Subtle shifts east and west. We call that the windshield wiper effect as the storm begins to develop. But once it actually got a center of circulation, pretty much all the models were locked in and it never changed. Now again, they are not as good with intensity, especially with rapidly intensifying storms. That was a much wider spread across the models that I look at, the tropical models, the global models like the European and the GFS. But for a long time now, these models have done really well with track. And so I want to pass that along to you guys as well. Things can always get squirrely and things can change, man, but these models have really honed in on their ability to track these storms 5-6 days out. Again, intensity is an entirely different situation, but never had a deviation from that track because, again, we talked about how the two main features that were going to drive this storm this way were more than likely locked in, and there wasn't going to be a lot of big differences there. So I just want to pass along because there's always something we can learn or something we can take away from all of these storms. And if you guys are going to be joining me for these live streams, you know, part of this is just, you know, post-mortem with these events as well. You can go back and look at what the Hurricane Center's track was with Helene when it was south of Grand Cayman, and it was basically here. So credits to all those involved there. When you can start focusing in on a track earlier in time, that means you can get out the necessary information to those who are really going to be impacted quicker, sooner. Give them more heads up, more lead time. That's the best part about having good track guidance. Now, intensity is a whole different ballgame. Mary, how you doing? Thank you so much. Let's get the hearts out for Mary. Let's get the thumbs up. $10 super stickers. Again, first super on a live stream. Thank you so much, Mary. Oh, I know Andrew well, Francisco. I didn't grow up there, but I had family members who lived in the Miami area during Andrew. So we basically got to get the whole eye to move on, and then they'll say we have actual landfall. Sometimes they'll pull the trigger when the northern eye wall is all the way in. Sometimes they wait. I have a question as well, YouTube Street. Sometimes it defies logic, but once the inner eye hits land, that is landfall, okay? So we're not there yet, but we're getting close. Landfall is going to be in Taylor County. And if you notice, I mean, this is a high resolution mapping system I have. There's not much here. It's a very natural area of the Big Bend. This is Appalachia Bay here, okay? So this is, and someone mentioned Perry earlier, this is driving right into Perry. Yeah, Timothy, they're going to get some heavier rain for sure. I agree with you, Sean, no doubt about it. Thank you, Wallace. Appreciate the kind words. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Shay. I appreciate it. Look, man, models are a part of the equation, but they're not everything. You know, and obviously I'm not someone who's going to just show you the worst case scenario model each and every day, you know. And I don't watch any other streamers because I don't want to be influenced. I see thumbnails because my YouTube homepage will recommend other weather channels because that's what I do, and I'm always checking our videos. So I do see thumbnails, and some of them raise 1 or 2 eyebrows, right? But you know, that's up to you guys to figure out who you trust and why, right? I'm never going to change just to hype something up or just to, you know, play into something, right? When I always try and call it like I see it. But that's where you guys come in as far as picking and choosing, you know, who and what you want to see and why. But as far as predicting these storms, models are only a part of the situation. You know, there's a lot more that goes into it as well. And the point I was trying to make is that around these times that we start getting these intense storms, I get emails from people and messages on social media who someone's found a snapshot of like the worst case scenario model and they posted it on their social media. And someone will email me and say, Rusty, why aren't you talking about this 170 mile an hour storm? And I look and it's the GFS model 2.5 weeks out. You know what I mean? It's hard to, you know, but it's tough because some people don't understand. They look at it and they take it at face value and they think, hey, if someone's posting this on social media, it's got to be true. You know, why aren't you talking about this storm that's going to hit, you know, Florida with 170-mile-an-hour winds, and it's the GFS model 2.5 weeks out? And I'm like, you could find a Cat 5 hurricane at the end of the GFS model every run if you wanted to. So you got to fight that too as well. But, you know, our philosophy here is if we do it right, you guys will come back and you'll keep watching and more people will join you. You know, that's our philosophy. So just real quick, because you guys have mentioned this other storm, and we're going to hit landfall here in just a second. Look, there's a 20% chance here in the Western Caribbean. There's nothing to it as of yet. It could be developing here in the Southwest Caribbean and then moving up north, but it's so far out in time right now, and the models don't have a good handle on it, that I will cover the scenario in tomorrow's video, but there's nothing appreciable to concern yourself with as of now. Okay? We're fine for now. If that changes, I'll let you know. We still have this area, which is an Invest. This is Invest 98L. Again, it's gonna gain latitude far enough north and east of the Lesser Antilles and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands where this should not be an impactful storm there. Should be a fish storm. And again, we do have Isaac. So we have the 9th named storm, but it is in the open waters of the North Atlantic. It is forecast to become a hurricane or a hybrid subtropical storm, but it's moving into nowhere land either. And as it gains latitude, it's going to quickly lose its tropical characteristics. But we do have the 9th named storm. If you guys remember, it was the same situation with Beryl. Beryl was, you know, impacting Jamaica and heading towards the Yucatan. And then right before landfall, we had Chris right there on the Mexico coastline, which darted inland and it lasted for like 12 hours. So every so often in hurricane season, named storms can sneak up and pass by you. And I promise you, there'll be some people down the road that when we get Joyce, they'll be like, wait, what happened to Isaac? Be like, well, that storm, you know, didn't really impact anyone. It happens sometimes. Even with me sometimes, I had to go, oh yeah, we had Chris, that's right. It didn't last long, but we did have Chris. All right, so let's hone in here, guys, on this storm. Landfall is imminent in Taylor County. Nothing reporting from the Hurricane Center as of moving on shore as of yet. But we are getting very close to landfall here. Again, Perry, Mayo, Cross City, Bradford, Trenton, you know, even close to, you know, Gainesville's a little bit, you know, probably a little bit too far south and east. Lake City and Live Oak, White Springs up the I-75 corridor. These are all areas of high concern for hurricane conditions. It's not just the coast with this storm, man. Not just the coast with this storm for sure. That's the live look out of the Tallahassee radar. What I am appreciative of is that this is behaving when it comes to tornadoes so far. Again, we have an extreme wind warning. You don't see those very often, do you? Just east of Tallahassee. Looks like the radar is trying to go through an active scan here. Let me just see if I can bring that back on. There we go. All right, now we're back to the live sweep. Excellent. Yeah, so the northeast eyewall is moving into Taylor County. So we're getting close to landfall. And it's right about the time we expected, right? Kind of talked about 11 o'clock being about it. I think that's going to be about it. Let me get the winds back on here as well. We'll see those freshen up a bit Again, we don't have, unfortunately, I wish Perry had a METAR site right there. Tallahassee is up to, and I can get rid of the TLH. So Tallahassee's up to 48. It's going to get fresh. East Point 41. Gainesville does have a 56 mile an hour wind. So again, huge wind field with this storm. Dave, good night, buddy. Take care. George, you're welcome, or Jorge. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Again, appreciate all of our supporters of the channel tonight. Read those back off. Fiona, her $9.99 super stickers. Mary, becoming a member here. Jim, $10. I appreciate you. Yvette, $2.79 Canadian. Dead of Life Beta, $4.99. I appreciate that. Taylor, $1.99. Mary, 10. And again, the other cool thing about that is a lot of those are the first time supporting a live stream, or some of you being at least several time supporters of Meteo Mundo. So appreciate all that. And again, I appreciate just even thinking about it, right? Appreciate the likes, appreciate the subscribe. Samara, how you doing? We're getting close to landfall, guys. See a couple more cameras. What do you think? There's your storm surge graph. Let me get off camera here. This is actually an amusement park in Fayetteville, Georgia. And then you can see some of the heavier rain coming in. This is Atlanta. This is the Braves Stadium, the baseball team, where they were supposed to play the Mets tonight, but, you know, Helene had other ideas. That's the International Airport out of Atlanta coming up here. Let me switch that. You can just see how wet and soggy it is. Maurice has a lot of rain and bleeds as well. I think our friends would say join the club, right? Let's go back down southwest to Naples. Again, you can't see too much here, but there's a boat in the right-hand side, and it's rocking a little bit here, even with some of that wind left over from Helene. This is my hometown of Crystal River. Coming up right there. Going to keep a close eye on that one for the storm surge. Again, places like Crystal River will really start to see the water pile up very late tonight and then early tomorrow morning. Let's go back to that one camera as well. Oh, we lost the light. Oh, darn it. This was the one where we were looking at the dock and we were watching some of the sailboats out there as well. So unfortunately, lost that one. Just the light source out of that. Yeah, fortunately that one went away. So glory plays for Tallahassee. It's going to get bad, but the center of circulation should track towards east of you. So you're up to 50 mile an hour wind gusts right now, but you are not going to get the core of the storm. So Tallahassee has been spared. That is great news for Tallahassee. Again, when one area gets spared, that means someone else gets hammered, and that's going to be the Perry area, Horseshoe Beach, Cross City, Bell, Branford, Fort White, High Springs, Mayo, Lake City, Live Oak, White Springs. Areas along the path and to the east. And again, we are imminent from having landfall. Winds are still crazy high in Orlando. We're still getting some 60 mile an hour winds right now. I mean, outside the house, it just, I feel like I'm in a wind machine. It's pretty nuts. But the one thing I'm happy about, again, right now, no tornado warnings in these areas. Still watching for that inherent rotation. But so far as that goes, there's cooperation here. Now, as the eye comes on shore, could there continuing to be some spin-ups? Absolutely. And more than likely, the hurricane hunters, they're making their final pass on the south side. right here. Now that icon is old school, way too far behind. That was of the last 8 o'clock report. But there's the hurricane hunters on the south side. They're just wrapping up their pre-planned flight track. And then that's it. They'll be done. Tallahassee up to a 49-mile-an-hour wind, but it's a lot worse. I think the winds in Tallahassee get to 60, maybe slightly higher than that, but being on the western side, shouldn't be much more. As a matter of fact, I know it sounds crazy, but Gainesville might have a higher wind than Tallahassee ends up having. It'll be close, for sure. Roaming this life. Come on. I might love you. Thank you very much, man. Let's give the hearts and the thumbs up. $15. That is significant and that is appreciated. Thank you very much. All in jest with the love part, but I do appreciate it very much. Thank you for finding the channel. Thank you for the support. It means a lot to the team. And again, first super on a live stream. How awesome is that? That really blows me away that you guys would choose to dip into those waters here at Meteo Mundo. But we hope we're providing coverage that you guys want to keep coming back for as well. So thank you so much for that. So let's give a lot of thumbs up and hearts to roaming this life. All right, real quick. Oh, where are you? There it is. That's Tallahassee. I know we can't see much, guys, but I'm doing the best I can. I was hoping we might see a lightning flash here or there. Here's another shot. Let's switch over to this one. This is out of Tallahassee as well. Again, not much to see. And then the East Point shot still looks pretty good here, but that's out of the lighthouse, so okay. So there you go. Again, in version 2.0, there will be other things to show you guys too, especially with landfalling storms in the United States. But the bigger thing is that for our Caribbean friends, we just get you guys covered on these storms that have significant impacts too. We know it all matters. The size of this storm is going to be something. Let's look at this eye. Yeah, I mean, it is a solid 30 miles wide. Absolutely enormous. I mean, even if I'm conservative and we go in from the reflectivity areas, 27, 28, you know, 12 mile wide eye is big, 15 is big, 27. And now you're seeing all of this heaviest activity move inland. So if I switch over to the velocity product here, you're going to really start to see these winds pick up, right? Now, some of this is going to be embedded within the flow, and it's going to be hard for the radar to distinguish it. But you can see that there are more significant winds beginning to come in. And then, again, look at that void. Clear eye there. There's the western eye wall. There's the eastern eye wall. And you see the winds around that. And if I put that into motion, you're going to see a pretty cool little spin with this vortice coming in. But again, nothing of a tight couplet. So no tornadoes right now. Thank goodness. Let's keep it that way. And that is the loop of the last half hour here out of the Tallahassee radar. Still have not gotten the 11 o'clock update. The 11 o'clock is a full advisory, by the way. We'll see if at the 11 o'clock update we get ourselves a landfall. I'm not sure yet. It's going to be close. And then we can kind of talk about what kind of goes on from here. Remember, this whole area is still under a tornado watch, and that goes all the way down to Cape Coral. Now, again, I'm just showing you the Tallahassee radar. If I composite this with all of the next rad sites, you see that these bands, these squalls, are still moving on shore well south and east. That's why we're still getting 60-mile-an-hour winds in Orlando, and 50 in Titusville, and nearly 60 in Ruskin and Sarasota still. These are all live reports, by the way. All of these numbers here are within a short amount of time. Just as an idea, the 59 was an hour ago. Ruskin's was 2 hours ago. Sarasota's was an hour ago. So at worst, they're 1 to 2 hours old, but it shows you the kind of winds. Gainesville's was just about 40 minutes ago at 56. Look at Jacksonville's winds picking up. That's a new report on the north side of Jacksonville of a 58-mile-an-hour wind. Again, stronger than what Tallahassee is seeing at the present time. So it really does matter which side of the storm that you're on. So right into Taylor County. The eye will be moving over Perry. It's interesting, isn't it, Jim? I'm trying to think. I have definitely been through the eye of a high tropical storm, but I don't believe I've actually been through the eye of a hurricane. Remember, a lot of the time that I was doing this, I would be broadcasting rather than trying to find the eye or whatever. That actually happened when I was growing up, and we actually just had a tropical storm move right over the house. And it was what everyone talks about. You know, you get lashed with the strongest winds as the storm comes through. There's a eerie tranquilness and blue sky for 10 minutes or so, and then you get the back end eye wall, and the next thing you know, you got yourself some strong winds again. Here's Tampa. Just one more look at Bayshore Drive. Again, the water is over Bayshore Drive and flooding inland. The bottom line is that Tampa Bay, the storm surge is significant, and the flooding is very prominent in those areas. So just wanted to show you that camera again while I had that opportunity. That's back down in Tampa, well away from the center right now, which again, the eye is beginning to move on shore. Still no 11 o'clock update from the Hurricane Center as of yet. Now, because the eye is just coming on shore, be a couple of things to look out for in that 11 o'clock advisory. First of all, I don't think they're going to change the strength much. Again, right now, with it still majority being offshore, they're probably not going to lower it if any, but probably not. We'll see what the last reported pressure is. The forward speed is going to matter because now we're going to be talking about how quickly this moves inland and gets into southwest Georgia, and then the areas that are going to be more directly impacted. Again, Tallahassee can take a sigh of relief. Still going to be impacted, but not nearly as significantly had the eye moved due north and into Leon County. There is a slight easterly push to this. It's certainly still north-northeast, but it kind of came on in the eastern envelope of where this was a possibility. But again, this is bad news for Horseshoe Beach and Perry. And again, these are all southwest winds, just pulling in feet and feet of water to these areas. The water inundation is going to be absolutely catastrophic. Not really looking forward to saying, and you notice here right on the coastline, we're clearing that spot out. The eye has begun to move on shore, for sure. Probably could have said that better. Yeah, Peggy, I bet. With Charlie too. Charlie was a monster, man. Yep. Yeah, it's something. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you tuning in, Jim, for your first in the eye experience. So again, we're getting close to 11, and we'll get the Hurricane Center's newest update. I'm as curious as you are, by the way. So Isaac is a tropical storm. It's going to become a hurricane, but again, it's moving into no man's land. Those are the kind of ones that you like because you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Didn't impact anyone, move on. Not the case with some of the other storms this year, though, but that's how it always goes. All right, so the 11 o'clock advisory is out, and the headline is Hurricane Helene very close to making landfall. It's splitting hairs. We know where it's going to make landfall. It's going to be here in Taylor County near the Perry area. Pressure's 938 and the winds are 140. Okay, so as I suspected, because the eye was still offshore and we haven't started to see this lose any strength yet, they weren't going to start dropping the winds as of now. So winds are still 140. That means it's going to be making landfall as a Category 4. Solid Cat 4. Pressure down 1 millibar to 938. Forward speed is still north-northeast at 24. Okay? So I want to take a second and just kind of plot this out real fast for anyone who's interested. So landfall is here. It's moving in a north-northeast fashion. Now look, we're going to have to, kind of judge exactly how far east it goes. But in 1 hour, the center of circulation should be north of US 19, approaching the I-10 corridor. We go another hour out, so now we're talking about 1 a.m., and it's swinging into South Georgia, right on the Florida-Georgia line, okay, at 48 miles, 24 miles an hour. Now, is it more here? Is it more here? Remember, this is just one center point, but the eye is still 30 miles wide. It's going to contract a bit, and it's going to start to lose a bit of integrity. But to be clear, your hurricane, warnings go this far north. So deep into the overnight hours, here, doesn't really matter if I expand this out. Again, you got to find Macon. Isn't this nuts that we're more than 200 miles away and we have hurricane warnings? So, I mean, it's at least 8 hours, right? Even at 24 miles an hour, right? If it went 20 miles an hour for 200 miles, that's 10 hours. We shave a little bit off of that, right around 8 hours. So, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, this thing makes Macon, Georgia, and it could still be a hurricane. But that's the kind of projected centerline track, somewhere around there. Could be a little bit more like that. It could even be over here. Again, I'm not prognosticating. If I bring on the cone, you can see that right there. Now this cone is still the 8 o'clock cone, by the way. But you get that idea. So that's kind of what's going down the road. And again, for anyone in these areas, it's just as important as to whether you're west of the storm, which is better, whether you're in the center line of the storm, which is not great, or whether you're on the eastern side of the storm, which is not great to even worse. Okay? Obviously, there's no storm surge inland, so it's going to be all about the wind, the rotation, the heavy rainfall, the tornado threat, things like that. See if the newest forecast discussion has come in. We can read that together if it has. It has. Excellent. So I'm just going to put this in a spot where we can still see the storm. Bring it on over, Rusty. There we go. Hurricane about to make landfall in the Florida Big Bend. Timely observations from Air Force and NOAA. Hurricane Hunter aircraft, they're giving love to the reconnaissance aircraft, and I don't blame them. Strengthened rapidly to a Cat 4 before approach the coast. Pressure falling about 3 millibars per hour since this afternoon. Peak flight level winds were 136 knots, corresponding to 126 on the ground, which might have been a bit conservative. How about that? Radar and satellite imagery showing numerous mesocyclones spinning around. Large hurricane moving rapidly to the north-northeast, taking the center from south to north Georgia through early Friday morning, and then slowing down considerably and producing a ton of rain. Although the system will weaken over land, the fast-forward speed of Helene during the next 12 hours or so will result in a far inland penetration of strong winds over parts of the southeastern United States, particularly over Georgia, including some strong wind gusts over the higher terrain of the southern Appalachians. So more wind factored in with that as well. And again, it's crazy that 12 hours from now, they still have it as 65-mile-an-hour winds, which is a high-end tropical storm. So extrapolating out 8 hours from now, close to Macon, it is still going to be forecast to be a hurricane. Again, record setter, I think, in a lot of ways. I'm not going to, I'm going to be waking up tomorrow morning and not probably happy about what we're going to see. You know, Tampa Bay continues to flood. The water's going over Bayshore Drive right there. So again, it's just one camera that we have available so you guys can see that. But there will be a lot of other areas of big time inundation of water. Tallahassee still at 47, right? So far we haven't had a stronger wind gust get there. Gainesville's up to 61. I'm telling you, Tallahassee is so much closer to the center than Gainesville. And I mention this because that's Florida State University versus the University of Florida. Big time rivals in sports. But Tallahassee may actually get weaker winds than Gainesville, if you can believe that, even though it's so much closer to the storm. Yeah, Timothy, I did work in Biloxi for 3 years before Katrina, by the way. But yeah, obviously Camille was the benchmark storm there before Katrina, right? So obviously the folks, when I lived there, that was what they would discuss a lot. And I was there for 3 years. It was actually a relatively quiet tropical 3 years. Didn't really have any big storms come up that way. So no big stories from there. Obviously, you know, once Katrina hit, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, you know, having lived there for 3 years, and it was hard to pick out landmarks that I could recognize. It was unbelievable. Highway 90, you couldn't tell what was what. And that was the case for a lot of the Gulf Coast after Katrina. Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate you. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, Raymond. I hear you on that too. Okay, so we do have our first tornado warning here in Lake County. Oh, sorry, Lake City. Let's take a look at that. So it's a tornado warning for North Columbia, Southeast Hamilton to 11:30. We have a confirmed tornado. Wow, okay. Emergency management confirmed tornado. You know, this is going to happen from time to time with these storms. Try and switch over to the Jacksonville radar here. Every so often, this thing doesn't want to cooperate. There we go. Should get a little bit better shot out of this from the Jacksonville radar. But this is the problem with these storms. You can't see a ton here, can you? Looks like the area of concern is there. And then moving pretty quickly into South Georgia. Oh, is the sight down? Oh no, there's definitely the velocity difference right there. Yeah, so, you know, it was issued here, but again, how fast was this storm going? Crazy fast. Let's take a look. What was the forward speed of this thing? Moving north at 30. Not as fast as some of the storms on the West Coast, but you can see that there's a couple of areas of reds and greens close to each other. The fact that it's a confirmed tornado, I could not spot this off of radar. That shows you how low based some of these spin-ups can be. Typically in this environment, these tornadoes don't last long. They're not on the ground for very long, but they drop down, they produce some brief damage in very choice location, and they come right back up. They're not larger tornadoes either, but they also typically aren't on the ground for very long. So they're very hard to pick up, which is why with landfalling storms, sometimes you can see a lot of tornado warnings, because any kind of rotation that the Weather Service offices sees here, they're just going to start pounding tornado warnings on them, especially because of the forward speed, 40, 50, 60. Again, earlier today, down in the Sarasota area, there was a north motion of a storm at 75 miles an hour. That was the tornado warning for a storm moving north at 75 miles an hour. You just don't have a lot of time for heads up, so they fire them off, boom, 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 one after another, if they continue to see rotation. All right, guys, so we basically have landfall here. Again, Taylor County near Perry. Notice that the eye is beginning to move over Perry. So now the winds will start to turn back out. Again, you're going to start to see the winds now turn more out of the west to the southwest. And then that's where all this water starts to really pile up. Now, it's already bad in Cedar Key, right? 10 to 15 feet. You know, the pictures out of there are going to be unpleasant. Same thing for Citrus County, Homosassa Springs, Crystal River, south winds coming in, winds of over 50 miles an hour. Spring Hill, 55. All of these southwest winds will just pile up this water, inundate these areas. And again, some of your strongest winds are just east. Tallahassee, even Thomasville, Georgia has a 53 mile an hour wind, Valdosta 40. But again, just laying over these wind vectors so you kind of get the idea of the overall rotation. Just looking at how this model stair-stepped it, and it's pretty much spot on. I mean, there you go. I mean, you can see where it has the eye. It has literally split it into the 4 quadrants of your counterclockwise rotation. So cheers to the model for picking up exactly on where this was coming on shore. And again, you know, these aren't play around winds here. You know, these winds are 70, 80 miles an hour behind it. You know, that's the problem, right? So even on this model, Cedar Key right now, if you can look with me, getting pounded with at least 60 mile an hour winds even behind the storm here, but it's probably even worse than that. And it's a horrible, horrible wind direction too. Okay. We know we've basically had landfall. Hurricane Center hasn't come out and said it, but they basically said landfall is imminent. And we know where it is here. It's in Taylor County near Perry as a Category 4 with winds of 140 miles an hour. The story of Helene is going to be the catastrophic storm surge of potentially 15 to 20 feet. It's going to be a storm that will bring historic flooding to portions of the southeast United States, and the winds that maybe have never been seen from a landfalling tropical storm deep inland into places like Georgia and South Carolina, especially Georgia. But again, look at all of these watches and warnings and these advisories that are in effect, and the vast majority of that I'm showing you are directly related to what's happening with Helene. Again, for Central Florida, tropical storm warnings continue. Tornado watch until 6 a.m. So far, so good on that. Yes, we have the one in Lake City, but so far we haven't had numerous ones. The winds are going to continue to be strong, 50 to 60 miles an hour. As far as what's going to be happening from here, this storm will continue to race to the north-northeast. It's going 24 miles an hour, which means deep into Georgia, it will bring hurricane conditions. The storm surge, the water inundation in this area, the heavy rainfall, all combined, you know, pictures and videos that get sent to me or I can use, I'll show in tomorrow's video. But more than likely, the damage, the destruction in these areas, Horseshoe Beach, Cedar Key, is going to be unprecedented. These are areas that have been hit very hard before in the past, but nothing as close and as powerful as a Helene. Then the storm on the expected track, right? And this is the new forecast cone, by the way. So again, it's basically heading right to Macon, and then should start to bend north and west after that over Metro Atlanta. And then it stalls out over the Tennessee Valley, where numerous areas could see inundation of flooding rains. And that's always a scary thing because unfortunately inland river flooding kills the most people with landfalling hurricanes. I know I mentioned it several times, but a lot of people are very surprised that that's a fact. And it's not even close. It's somewhere around 90% of fatalities with landfalling storms in the United States comes from inland river flooding. And for a time, not last year, I believe, but like for a 5-year period, 2018 to 2023 or 2017, 2022, it was carbon monoxide poisoning with people not using generators properly. Believe it or not, those were the most fatalities over about a 5-year period. But you have to watch out for the amount of water that these storms dump inland, which can be feet in a couple of spots. Friends, with the eye being on shore, I think we're going to wrap up this live coverage. Again, appreciate you guys joining me last night for the Let's Get Prepared stream. Thanks for those of you who found the sister station, Central Florida Weather Live, earlier today, where we did a lot of coverage for Central Florida there. Remember, that's a live-only channel, so I only do these kinds of live streams when the weather is significant in Central Florida to cover that. And again, for my friends in Central Florida who are viewing us on Meteo Mundo right now, still going to watch out for these squalls, winds of 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. Still a tornado threat, but so far it's cooperating there. Thank you to all of my friends across the Caribbean and across the world who have tuned in to this live stream. Thank you for choosing Meteo Mundo. Again, excited to bring you this coverage. Really excited about version 2.0, if you will, and some of the other things that we look to bring you guys. We got you covered here at Meteo Mundo. And obviously, with Helene moving inland, our thoughts are with everyone impacted there. Coming up in our Friday video, we'll talk a lot more about the Western Caribbean for more potential development there. I'll have the newest information on Invest 98L, which should stay north and east of the Lesser Antilles. We'll talk about some of the heavier rain in some spots that we'll get that for the weekend ahead as well. So make sure you like and subscribe to Meteo Mundo. I'll have a new update coming in tomorrow afternoon. And again, for our friends in the Big Bend of Florida, for all of those that are impacted by this storm, our thoughts are with you guys. This is going to be a big area that gets hammered pretty hard by this storm over the next couple of days. Again, friends, to all of you in the chat, thank you so much. As you leave, if you wouldn't mind dropping me a like and a subscribe, I really appreciate it. I will see you soon with the update for tomorrow. And again, if you have a picture or video, myMediaMundo@gmail.com. Easiest way to send that to me. All right, friends, you take care. Have a great rest of your extremely late Thursday night and into Friday, and I'll see you tomorrow.